Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our third video conference of the Las Cruces City Council. Today is Monday, April 6, 2020. It's approximately 1 p.m. Before we have our Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask if you please rise for a brief moment of silence for our brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces as they protect our interests around the globe. And a very special thank you and thoughts for our men and women of the Las Cruces Police Department, Las Cruces Fire Department, and all of our medical personnel that are working throughout the city to keep our city safe 24/7, 365. Flag here. And Mayor Pro Tem, when you're ready for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so now we're going to have our pet of the week, and I believe Jennifer Martinez from our communications office is there to introduce our pet.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here with you all so that I can introduce you to our pet of the week. One moment. Okay, can you all see Chingy? Chingy is our pet of the week, and he is a male who's just over 7 years old. He is an older guy who is sure to bring a calm and cool demeanor to even the most chaotic of households. His mellow personality blends in perfectly with almost any family. He is perfect for spring and, of course, many seasons to come. And I would also like to let you know that the Animal Service Center hours of operation are still the same, Monday through Friday, noon to 6 p.m., also Saturday and Sunday, noon to 5 p.m. They're located at 3551 Baton Memorial West. Right now, off-site adoption events are canceled until further notice, and there are some limitations at the Animal Service Center that are as follows. The adoptions right now are free. If you go to ascmv.org/adoptions, you can view all of the animals that are available. Animal control will bring only emergency cases to the shelter. That includes sick or injured animals. The center is accepting only sick or injured owner-surrendered animals. They're only taking emergency health appointments from those that they have adopted out or fostered out, and they have a reduced on-hand staff. Now, the temperatures this week are expected to get up near 80 degrees, so I want to bring back those warmer weather tips. Never leave pets outside for long periods of time. We ask that you provide water and shade. Keep pets from resting on concrete, and groom regularly. A close shave also could lead to sunburn, so be careful of that. Exercise when it's cooler, either in the morning or in the evening, and provide cool treats if you can. Now, we have some COVID-19 answers for our communications office. We feel this is a great platform to get some information out to you. Where can you get tested? There are 2 testing locations in Las Cruces at the New Mexico Department of Health drive-through. That's located at 1170 North Solano Drive. The hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. You are asked to call for an appointment at 528-5001. And the MMC drive-through located at 2450 South Telshore Boulevard, again, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Again, call in advance, 522-8641. You can get this information on newmexico.gov, and you can also get it at our website, los-cruces.org, where we have all of our information listed in the COVID-19 section in the top left-hand corner, and all our news releases in the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. All right, so next is going to be, I don't believe we have any presentations of any certificates. So now we'll go to conflict of interest. This is where I'll ask if any member of the city council, city manager, or any member of city staff has any known conflict of interest of any kind.
None.
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 You could also raise your hand if you have one, but I don't think you guys have any. So now I don't believe we're having public participation. It's listed on the cue sheet, but Vince, are you there by any chance? Okay, you just never know. Okay, I have a closed meeting statement to read. I can't wait to be back in our council chambers and have Vince talk to us. Okay, so the Las Cruces City Council met in closed session at 9:30 a.m. on March 17, 2020. The following members were in attendance: Councilors Flores, Sorg, Nkomo, Vasquez, Beta Stubi, Gandara, and myself, Ken Miyagishima. Staff present was Jennifer Vega Brown. Meeting adjourned at 3:40 p.m. And for the record, City Council met in closed session and only discussed those limited items as stated in the posted notice. The purpose of the closed meeting was to discuss limited personnel matters related to the city manager interviews, which was closed pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H, number 2. And the individuals who we spoke with was Veronica Soto, Kenneth Young, David Dollahan, and after that we debriefed. The meeting adjourned at 3:40 p.m. Second, closed meeting statement. Cruces City Council met in closed session at 10:06 a.m. on March 23rd, 2020. Following members were in attendance: Councilors Flores, Sorg, Nkomo, Vasquez, Beta Stubi, Gandara, and myself, Ken Miyagishima. Staff present was Mark Jeremy, outside counsel, David Dollahan, assistant city manager, David Maestas, interim city manager, and Jennifer Vega Brown, our city attorney. And meeting adjourned at 11:25 a.m. And for the record, Las Cruces City Council met in closed session and only discussed those limited items as stated in the posted notice. Purpose of the meeting was to discuss litigation related to Melanie Dunn, ETAL versus City Las Cruces, ETAL number D307-CV-2018-02315, which is closed pursuant to NMSA 1978, Section 10-15-1H, number 7. Okay, so now we're going to go to acceptance of the agenda. And Councilor Flores asked to have item number 7.1, 7.2, and 7.5 removed from the agenda.
Yes, thank you.
If there's nothing further, then I'll need a motion and a second to approve the agenda as stated.
So moved.
Can you state your name, please? Who said that? Who made the motion?
Councilor Flores.
Oh, okay.
Second by Gabe Vasquez.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Councilor Vasquez. Did you say something, Councilor Sorg?
Yes, Mayor, I second the motion.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, we'll go and change it to Councilor Sorg second. I heard you say something, I just didn't quite hear it. So motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Councilor Sorg to approve the agenda as amended. If there's no further questions, need a vote. Christine, I guess you're there?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Okay.
This is on the motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 7.1, 7.2, and 7.5 for discussion. Councilor Beta Stubi.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo.
Yes.
Councilor Sorg.
Yes.
Councilor Flores.
Yes.
Councilor Gandara.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Okay, so first item, 7.1, which is resolution number 20-127. Need a motion and a second, please.
Gabe Vasquez move to approve.
Second, Cassandra Gandara.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. And Councilor Flores, did you have just a question or did you need I believe Viola is going to be doing the presentation. Did you need a full presentation?
I do have a question or two.
Okay.
This is an increase for the MCHARD contract, and it's, I don't know anything about that contract. And the second question would be, what is it for? The other is, why the $25,000? Is it a renewable contract? Was it a request for increase? So those are the questions I have about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Viola is there. You wanna...
Yes, Mr. Mayor, councilors. This contract was issued to the MCHARD firm out of Albuquerque to do some audit work into the economic development activities Friends of Las Cruces and some of the related activities. And this increase is to support that effort. The report that the MCHARD group has issued is currently with the state auditor's office. However, this additional monies will help support any additional activities that need to take place.
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
yes, thank you, Ms. Perea. So you said, for example, Friends of Cruces, and are we still, is that organization still around, and are we still subsidizing it?
I would have to defer to the legal department on the further activities of the Friends of Las Cruces. What I can add is this increase is for $25,000
Yes.
for any potential follow-up work that might need to take place.
Oh, Ms. Perea, so can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So what follow-up work would that be? What kind of work would that be?
It's any questions that the state auditor's office might have in regards to this report. The report is currently with their office, and we are waiting for them to approve the report and release it back to the city.
I see. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Viola. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-127. Councilor Abeyta-Stevie?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yeah. Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, now we'll go to item 7.2, Resolution 20-128. Need a motion second, please.
Gabe Vasquez, move to approve.
Councilor
Second.
Sorg, second.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Sorg. Councilor Flores, did you have a question or two to ask of Alex? Or did you need a full presentation?
No, not a full presentation. I just want to know what the uniforms are for and whose uniforms.
Alex, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. These are the uniform for citywide. Basically, it covers the uniforms for utility departments, public work departments, park and recs departments, fleet, and any department that needs uniforms. We give them about 2 months to submit all the items that needed, and we post on the street, and we receive 2 bids, and we recommend to work to both vendors so that we have a backup.
So is this an annual thing that we go through, and I missed it last year?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Councilor Flores. Yes. The answer is we, as a city, being piggyback on the county's uniform contract for a while now, and this is the effort that to make our own contract for uniforms. This contract is recommended to be for 1 year, and it comes with 2 one-year renewable options.
So this is the first time that we're doing it on our own. That's why I hadn't seen it before. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And it's hard to get through your eagle eye, so that's a rarity. Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-128. Councilor Abeyta-Stevie?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, next item, 7.5, Council Bill number 20-028, ordinance number 2920. Need a motion a second, please.
So moved by Yvonne.
Second by Cassandra. Sorry.
Okay. Motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. And again, Councilor Flores, did you have a question or two to ask of staff on this?
Yes. So this is money for flood control, and where exactly, is it a project that's already been approved? Is it something that we have decided on previously? And if that isn't the case, where are the controls and the flood controls to be placed? Or even if they have been placed? I mean, the decision to place them.
So I'm going to ask if David Cedillo is there or Karen Byram. Either one can.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. Yes, ma'am. Councilor Flores, there are 6 projects listed on there, and some of them are being used while they are on the CIP, others for funding to place on the CIP. So the 6 projects that we're going to be using this funding for would be Avenida Blanco between Valley Drive and Calle Encanto, the East Mesa Recreation Complex roads. We were also going to be using that for the East Mesa drainage study that is currently ongoing, Brown Farm drainage improvements, Phase 1, Mesquite Tornillo drainage, and South Main Street between Avenida de Mesilla and Bouts.
So, thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Where are the ones that have already been designated?
The ones currently already on the CIP are South Main, the East Mesa roads, Brown Farm drainage improvements, and the Mesquite Tornillo. The East Mesa Public Roads is also on there in conjunction with our Geo Bonds projects.
And how soon are these ready to move, or are they still, I mean, they've been funded, they're ready to move, they're ready to go?
There are some projects that are ready to move. Those would be your Brown Farm drainage improvements, South Main Street. We also have the East Mesa roads where the drainage study is being done currently right now, and they're finishing that up, so the design will be moving forward with that. The ones that we will need to work on and are going to be in the process of doing so are going to be your East Mesa Recreational Complex roads. That just because we are still going through the design phase to finish the layout. Once the layout is complete, then we can have the consultant let us know what is the best route to have our roads extend out to that complex so people can drive out there from multiple directions. Avenida Blanco, that one, we are looking at getting that one under design.
So, Mr. Cedillo, the East Mesa Complex roads, are those the ones that would be for the purpose of facilitating access to the soccer fields and all that? Is that why that's is it part of the GO bond? Did you say it was part of the GO bond?
Councilor Flores, that is, your statement is correct. The purpose of that is to get the roads out to the complex itself.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mayor, I have a few.
Is that Mayor Pro Tem?
Cassandra, yes.
Okay. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Cedillo, for your brief explanation. Appreciate it. When you speak of to be secured by a lien on the 5th quarter % increment of municipal gross receipts tax and the home harmless distributions. Now, the 5th quarter, how much did we receive in GRT? And we're talking about a piece of that coming from, right, the GRT, and then the other from the home harness. I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm concerned about the pandemic. We have the money in the bank already, or do we have to be concerned?
Great question, Counselor. For that, I will defer to Karen Byram, Treasurer.
Councillor Gandara, the fifth one quarter is part of our monthly GRT distribution, and we get that as we go along. So yes, if our GRT goes down, the amount that we would have to pay and pledge for this debt would also go down.
So the fifth quarter already happened or not yet?
Yes, we're already collecting the fifth 1/4%.
Okay, so we don't know the total amount yet.
The total amount that we collect, I think, has been historically around $6 million a year for that 1 quarter.
So we don't know yet.
But we're going to? No.
Okay, so in the event we don't have the funding, what would happen?
We pledge that amount to pay for the debt. We can pay for the debt out of any available non-restricted source.
So in the event that we don't have the 6 million, where would we find it? What budget item would we go and look in?
You can go into your general fund, your hold harmless monies, your any of your revenue streams that you have available.
Okay, and if finance, Mr. we have the budget in case, and if that doesn't happen?
So what's been happening with this debt is we have a cycling program where we try to keep our debt service payments even. We had last year or this year dropped off a lower amount on some of our other debt service payments so that we could bring this debt in, have its debt service payments in, and still keep the same level of debt service.
Okay. Okay, so either way, we have the funding somewhere to cover this.
As much as we have the funding to cover whatever we buy.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
I just want to interject something. So this, if I remember correctly, this was something that former Mayor Johnson, Albert Johnson Sr. did back in the mid-70s. He had the foresight, he was an engineer, had the foresight to get council to put aside a certain percent of the GRT to be used for floods. And so that's why we I think do a lot better than most cities around the state because of this fund. So thanks to him and that council back in the mid-70s for doing this. So anyway, so thanks for that explanation, David and Karen. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Christine?
This is on the motion to approve ordinance 2920. Councillor Abeyta-Stube?
Yes.
Councillor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councillor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councillor Sorg?
Yes.
Councillor Flores?
Yes.
Councillor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, so now we go to 8.1, resolution 20-129. With a motion and second.
This is Councilor Sorg. I'll move to approve.
Councillor, second.
Who made the second?
Yvonne?
Okay,
Yvonne,
So motion-
Councillor Flores?
motion made by Councilor Sorg, second by Councilor Flores. And I believe Mr. Matt Sines will be discussing.
Let me try to share my screen with you.
There you go.
Okay. Can you guys see that okay? Let me try
Yes.
to.
F5.
Good.
Yes, it's fine.
So good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, administration. For the record, my name is Matthew Sines, Senior Budget Analyst with the Budget Office, and I'm here today to present the proposed quarterly adjustments for fiscal year 2020. As part of our adjustments, we are updating our beginning balances to reflect the Resolution 20-119, which has authorized the city of Las Cruces Financial Services Department to report to the New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration on an accrual basis. So we are transitioning from a cash basis to an accrual basis. And so we are no longer just looking at cash, we are looking at current assets. And current assets are assets that are easily converted into cash or consumed within 1 year. And also we're taking a look at current liabilities. These are obligations that are due in 1 year. So with the extended time frame and the addition of pulling in our obligations, in some instances, we are having to reduce budget for some funds so that we are in compliance with Department of Finance, because we are not allowed to report deficit spending on these funds. Also, as part of our adjustment, we are reflecting Resolution 20-97, and this is for the acceptance of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, also known as the CAFR. So with that, there are no new programs or policy initiatives. The adjustments are focused on compliance and alignment. We are increasing general fund transfers, and again, those are to bring some of the funds in compliance for DFA. And just a little side note, these adjustments are pre-COVID-19. However, we are working diligently with Dr. Biotis and to assess the situation. So overall, what we're trying to accomplish today is to apply best practice. So just as a friendly reminder, the amounts that we are requesting today are located in the column with yellow text. And also, the type of adjustment is indicated with E for expense, R for revenue, and T for transfer. So let's go ahead and get started. So from the general fund, we are transferring $20,703 to Fund 2402, the court award, and this is to align the budget with modified accrual. We are also budgeting revenue of $14,041 to help offset that amount. From the general fund, we are making a correction, which was a transfer to Fund 2403, and the amount of $25. We had a little bit too much budgeted on the general fund side. In addition to that, we're transferring over $1 to Fund 2403 for an adjustment for rounding. From the general fund, we are transferring $1 to Debt Service Fund 3612, the 2007 NMFA, and this is also to adjust for rounding. From the general fund, we are transferring $1 to Debt Service Fund 3616, the 2017 NMFA, and this is also to adjust for rounding. From the general fund, Fleet Services is requesting a transfer of $500,000, and they would also like to budget this $500,000 for operational needs such as gas, oil, parts, and supplies. And the increase is due mainly to repairs to older fleet units, in addition to extended transit hours for fuel. From the general fund, we are transferring $1,703 to the Older American Fund, Fund 2171. We had some workers' compensation that was posted at the end of fiscal year 2019. Unfortunately, these expenditures are not reimbursable. Quality of Life would like to budget $5,000 in revenue in the general fund, and this is for the museum merchandise sales. Fund 2440, Prisoner Care, we are reducing expenditures by close to $160,000, and this is to align the budget with the modified accrual. Fund 2490, Municipal Court, we're also reducing expenditures by $601, and this is also an adjustment to the modified accrual. Fund 2780, Utilities, is requesting $1.5 million. This is part of the settlement for the EPA for the Griggs Walnut Superfund. Fund 2810, Public Works, is reducing expenditures by $486,000. This is for a carryover adjustment for rolling stock. So they were able to expend more funds in 2019 than they anticipated. Fund 4005, Public Works, is reducing expenditures by $123,000, and this is to align the budget with modified accrual. Fund 4030, Public Works, is reducing expenditures by $48,000, and this is also an alignment with modified accrual. Fund 4227, Public Works, is requesting to budget the project for Metro Verde Variable Assessment District for Phase 1, and the amount is $1.9 million. Fund 4228, Public Works, would like to carry over an adjustment for the Las Cruces Convention Center in the amount of $168,000. Fund 4624, Public Works, They are reducing expenditures by over $500,000 to align budget with modified accrual. Fund 4632, Public Works is reducing expenditures by $140,000, and this is to align budget with modified accrual. Fund 5100, Utility Shared Services, is requesting $618,000, and this is for operational needs such as supplies and maintenance. Supplies, maintenance and repairs, temporary employment services, and software. They are also reducing the transfer to Fund 5150 by $20,000 since this fund will no longer be used. Fund 5250, Utilities Gas, is reducing expenditures by $70,000 to align the budget with modified accrual. Fund 5270, Utilities Gas, is requesting $483,000 for the Palmer Subdivision, Roadrunner Parkway Extension, and Alameda Estates reconstruction. Fund 5300, Utility is requesting $35,000 to purchase 4 locator units. These locator units will help to locate water and sewer lines in accordance with New Mexico regulations. Fund 5301, Utilities Water, is requesting $29,000 as part of the development fee impact study. Fund 5345, Utilities Water, is reducing expenditures by $2,000 in alignment with modified accrual. Fund 5346, Utilities Water, is requesting $713,000 for the Palmer Subdivision, Alameda Estates reconstruction, Vista de la Montaña, and Pines. Fund 5347, Utilities Water, is requesting $38,000 in alignment with the modified accrual. Fund 5348, Utilities Water, we're also reducing expenditures by $48,000 to align the budget with modified accrual. Fund 5378, Utilities Water, is requesting $12,000 for the Transite Pipe Master Plan, West Court Avenue improvements, and the 2019-2020 manhole valve adjustment projects. Fund 5445, Utilities Wastewater, is requesting $54,000. They're budgeting $54,000 as part of their investment income. They're also reducing expenditures by $1,197 to align the budget with modified accrual. Fund 5446, Utilities Wastewater, is requesting $385,000, and this is to adjust budget to actuals for the Palmer Subdivision, Downtown Two-Way conversion, and the Jacob Hands Wastewater Facility. Fund 5447, we're requesting $190,000 for the Roadrunner Parkway Extension, Alameda Estates reconstruction, West Court Avenue improvements, and Jacob Hands Wastewater Facility. Fund 6320, Human Resources, would like to budget $875,000 for employee health rebates as part of the stop-loss recovery. They are also requesting to budget expenditures of $1.5 million for consulting and administration fees for employee health. Fund 7480, Quality of Life, they would like to request $1,500 to equip the Children's Library, and these funds were provided by the Friends of the Library. And lastly, Fund 7492, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, we are reducing expenditures by $12,000 to align the budget with modified accrual. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Interim Public Works Director David Cedillo, who will be discussing the adjustments as they relate to the CIP.
Thank you, Matt. Next slide, please. Thank you. As you can see, Mayor, Council, if you recall from our last meeting back in January, Public Works wanted to come forth with those changes to projects on the CIP that were changed due to budget adjustments. Most of these projects that you're going to go through here, you will see that there are changes that relate to what Matt has already gone before in his presentation. The first one, as we're going through, for Tashiro Road improvements, that is in conjunction with those in Fund 4005 for a decrease of $100,000. For the energy photovoltaic projects, that adjustment also in 4005 with a decrease of $23,500. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong slide. Let me regress. We went over the Tashiro improvements. Next is your convention center expansion phase 1. That budget adjustment was an increase to Fund 4228 in the amount of $1,068.62. The Elephant View Irrigation District laterals and drainage, that one had an adjustment of a decrease in Fund 4030 of $48,200. Metro Verde Assessment District Phase 1 in Fund 4227 with an increase of $1.9 million. The Transportation System Modernization, that had an adjustment in Fund 4005 with a decrease of $100,000. The solar energy photovoltaic projects had an adjustment of a decrease in Fund 4005 in the amount of $23,500. The gas bond projects 2015, that had an adjustment of an increase to Fund 5270 in the amount of $438,717. The gas streets improvement project had an adjustment in Fund 5250 with a decrease of $70,000. Next one, the wastewater bond projects 2015A has an increase in Fund 5446 of $385,000. The wastewater development 15 bonds, that has a request or adjustment of decrease in Fund 5445 of $1,197. The wastewater NMFA loan, that adjustment in Fund 5447 is an increase of $190,000. Water bonds project 2015A, that adjustment is in Fund 5346 with an increase of $713,000. The water bond projects 2018 is looking at an adjustment in Fund 5348 with a decrease of $48,000. Water quality laboratory 15 bonds is requesting an adjustment in Fund 5345 with a decrease of $2,000. Lastly, the water rehabilitation NMFA, that one is requesting an adjustment in Fund 5378 with an increase of $12,000. The next one is the taxi lane improvements. That one, the project increased. So what we're asking to do at this time is increase that project from $77,000 to $106,730 for the reduction of taxi lane D rehab. And we're also requesting a name change. The increase from this project is coming from the one below, the taxi D rehabilitation, where that project decreased from $95,550 to $65,820 due to lower project costs. Those savings are what we're asking to be increased into the taxi lane improvements above. At this time, we will take any questions mayor and council may have.
Mr. Mayor?
Either David or Matt, can you tell me, I heard the word Palmer subdivision. Can you tell me approximately where that is going to be located? I have to disclose that I have a rental house at 1275 Palmer, which is near the corner of 6th Street and Palmer. And if it's close to that, well, I'm probably just going to abstain, but I just wanted to know, because a lot of times when they'll name a subdivision Palmer, but it could actually encompass 5, 6, 7 blocks in that whole area, and it could be another location. So I don't know if you know specifically where this improvement is going to take place. If you have that information, great. But I've decided, regardless, I'm just going to abstain. So I just wanted to disclose that.
Mayor, I would have to defer the question to utilities. They're the ones who are requesting the adjustment.
That's okay. I'm just going to abstain.
Mayor, if you will, I can answer that question for you.
Okay.
The improvements that utilities is asking for is in conjunction with the Palmer subdivision project that had currently been ongoing. That project is between Picacho Avenue and Valley Drive. That's the same project that was ongoing while the Valley Drive project was under construction. That is encompassed by First Street and Hadley on the south side. So that gives you the area of where that project was located.
Okay. Well, thank you, David. Yeah, that's not near me. So I know a lot of times they when they mention a subdivision, it can encompass a pretty good area. So I appreciate that clarification. So with that, I'm going to go to Councilor Sorg and then Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to go back to the slide that had the fleet services as one of the items on it?
Mayor,
And
Councilor,
while
yeah.
you're doing that, Mr. Sines and Mr. Cedillo, right. Excellent presentation. Your voices are very nice over this system here.
They used to be in the radio business, Councilor.
Oh, they must have been, yes. If it's, okay. There it is. Yeah, they're asking for $500,000 increase in their budget at 6150 for gas, and it's partially covered up by our video here, and supplies. Am I reading that right, Mr. Sines?
Mayor, Councilor, sorry, yes, sir. So it's additional operating for gas, oil, parts, and supplies. And I know
okay.
When you have your little bar here with everyone,
Yeah.
right down to the
Right.
bottom.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make a little point is that once we get electric vehicles, you won't need all those operating expenses. Just a little side note is all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Flores and then Councilor Beta Stuvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Cedillo and Mr. Sines. The question I have is, Mr. Sines, when you began the presentation, you said that most of these items would be related to changing from cash, from a cash to an accrual type of accounting. But then there was more detail and there's money being transferred. So my question is, the items that that only listed the transfers, the reasons that weren't for purposes of, or any agenda item that wasn't done for the purpose of making the cash to accrual what do you call it? Changing, to make it all equal from cash to accrual. Is everything on an accrual basis now? Is all accounting being?
Councilor, I think you hit your mute button.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did. So, Mr. Sines, my question was, did you, some of the, or Mr. Sines actually, some of the items aren't accrual items, and my understanding was that you were going to do a presentation on changing from cash to accrual accounting. So my first question is, are we now on an accrual basis entirely? And the items you covered in this presentation are the ones that hadn't been transferred yet, and were, you know, I don't know what the word is, but because you do have other items where they're not accrual cost versus accrual morphs, for lack of a better word. So I just want to know what it all is about. I mean,
So Mayor, Councilor Flores, yes, we are on an accrual basis now. With the adoption of Resolution 20-119, I believe February 3rd, if I'm not wrong. And so we are moving forward on those. So those adjustments that you noticed that were for modified accrual, those are adjustments that we needed to bring current, to bring them up to par for the accrual basis. That we're not getting any negative numbers.
and so what were and the other items are just adjustments? Are they within or without the accrual system?
So some of the other adjustments, we had carryover adjustments, which are a transition from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2020. In addition, we did have a couple new requests, such as the 1.5 million for the EPA for the Griggs Walnut.
But is that money reflected as a cash account or as an accrual account? That's
Everything going forward is now accrual basis.
okay. So the ones that you didn't specifically indicate was an accrual adjustment from cash. Not the word isn't accrual. It's more like a, well, yeah, I guess it is a adjustment. Are otherwise already in the accrual on the accrual basis.
I'm sorry, Councilor Flores, can you repeat?
I'm sorry, what? Can you hear me?
Councilor Flores, what was your question again?
My question is whether the items that weren't indicated as cash to accrual changes, therefore, all under the accrual system of accounting.
Yes, Councilor Flores, all the items are through the accrual basis. So everything moving forward is on the accrual basis. So we did have some additional new items. We had some carryovers from last fiscal year, but underlying everything is the accrual basis.
Great, thank you for clarifying that for me. Thank you, Mr. Sines, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Beta-Stubbe.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Sines. I have an additional question regarding fleet services on what departments will see improvements to their vehicles with this change.
Mayor, Councilor Beta-Stubbe, I would defer the question to Ms. Leanne DeMouche, Chief Budget Officer. She can provide more if she's available.
Mayor, Councilor Stubbe, this is Leanne DeMouche, the Chief Budget Officer. Councilor, what the fleet services, we had previously, Transit had extended their hours. We were estimating how much the gasoline for diesel cost would be. It has increased because of the expansion of hours. As far as what vehicles, we have a much older fleet. We have, we still are driving Crown Vics for police. And so we are trying to, in the long run, trying to replace vehicles as we go. Of course, every year, I think we finance somewhere between $1 million and 1.5 million for new vehicles. So a lot of these repairs are like for sometimes you may have a vehicle that has a lot of mileage will blow an engine. Actually, I think so far we've put in like maybe 2 or 3 new transit engines, which are rather costly as well. And then I know for a fact the other day Fleet was telling me that they had a couple of new engines for some of the Dodge Chargers for the police station. So these engines are expensive, and sometimes we're not quite sure in the year what type of expenses we're going to get from our older aging fleet. So we try to, we try to look at what the trends are and how old our vehicles are and try to see if we are going to need extensive pairs on some of these vehicles. But because of the extended hours on transit, it's putting more hours on the buses, and we are trying to keep up with all of the police vehicles as well. We also have had quite a few body work done on several vehicles, I think a couple of fire engines as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mitch. It's good to see that the car for will also be.
Councilor Beta-Stuvi, we're getting some interference. I don't know what's going on. If someone else could, if you're not talking, if you could mute your computers, please. Go ahead, Councilor Beta-Stuvi.
Okay, any better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mitch. I was going to say it was really good to hear that some of those police cars are in the mix to be fixed. Myself and Councilor Bencomo both were able to participate in ride-alongs, and we did see a few vehicles that were in very desperate need of repair that were currently being used as well, and they were just not safe for our officers. So I'm glad to see that there are some repairs in the works for that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Did they take you in the Corvette, or were you just in the Dodge Charger?
We were in the SUV type one.
Okay, gotcha. Let's see here. I think that's it. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-129. Councilor Beta-Stuvi?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo?
Yes.
Councilor Sorg?
Yes.
Councilor Flores?
Yes.
Councilor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, now we'll go to item 8.2, which is resolution number 20-130. Need a motion and a second, please.
Dave Vasquez, move to approve.
Stubbe, second.
Okay, it's motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Beta-Stuvi, and I believe Rob Cabello and Dr. Garcia will be presenting. I don't know which one's first.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. This is Robert Cabello with the Legal Department. Let me clear off one thing. I had a little bit of a microphone failure, so I had to switch to Viola Perea's computer to clear up any confusion. I apologize for that.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully they have it. I don't know how to do slideshow. Oh, yeah. Okay. Good afternoon again. I am presenting a resolution for the financial assurance resolution for the Superfund, tied to the Superfund litigation. And just to give you some background, obviously on August 9th, 2017, the city in Doña Ana County joined forces, if you will, and filed a lawsuit against the United States and the Department of Defense, including the National Guard, for hazardous substances that were found in the groundwater at the Griggs and Walnut Superfund site. A little bit later on, there were counterclaims filed by the EPA, and other parties were joined in, third-party vendors for the dry cleaning. However, now flash forward on February 10th, 2020, the City Council in a closed-door meeting voted for a consent decree. The consent decree is essentially a settlement. It's a 300-page document, and was to settle the claims with the city, county, and the federal parties. As a side note, I did not attach the consent decree. The reason is because counsel for the city and county, Jessica Farrell from the Martin Law Firm, she's the attorney that spoke to you on February 10th, 2020, indicated that we can't publish this document until it's been put into the federal registry. It hasn't been done yet. It will be probably in April or May. As part of this this consent decree, it requires a financial assurance from the city and county. Essentially, the assurance is to basically means that the city or the county will continue the cleanup at the Superfund site if, for whatever reason, the city can't or the county can't. And this would be the case of, say, a bankruptcy or something of that nature. Now, paragraph 33 of the consent decree requires that again, like I said, it requires that approximately $9 million are set aside if, again, the city or county are no longer able to do mitigation work, meaning eliminating the toxins and hazards in the groundwater. There are a few different options for doing a financial assurance. There was the bond, a letter of credit, or a legislative mandate. Both the bond and a letter of credit require money. It's expensive. Whereas the legislative mandate, what I'm proposing today, essentially costs no money. It's the inexpensive form of doing this. And with that, I'll go ahead and open up to questions.
Well, let me just ask you, Rob, since there's no one asking. So, well, okay, Councilor Vasquez, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually didn't have any questions, but I did just want to express my gratitude to our legal team who has been working on this for so long to finally come to a settlement that I think is very beneficial for our constituents, beneficial for our budget, and most importantly, that protects the health of our residents for the foreseeable future as part of this settlement, but also as part of the mitigation efforts that have already taken place with the Walnut Griggs Superfund. And so I know there's been a lot of hard work gone into this. Former City Attorney Driggers has a lot to be proud of in her efforts in reaching this settlement, as well as our entire legal team. And so I'm just glad to see that this is coming to an agreement, and that we can all move forward from this. And I think it's definitely a lesson learned for us in the future. Nobody foresaw that this particular contaminant would wreak so much havoc and so much damage to our local watershed. And so, when to me, it tells me that we have to take these environmental issues seriously in the future before they get out of control. Just like nobody knew that PCBs had the capability to seep so far into our water table and contaminate our water source. I think it'd be prudent for us to always continue to be on the lookout when concerns arise. I know we've done, I think, a good job looking at, for example, the use of Roundup in our pesticide control efforts and activities. And I know we've caught a lot of flack from people for that potentially. And I think that we're doing the right thing in that respect to not have to wait until the research is out there to let us know that this potentially is damaging to our health. And so just wanted to mention those comments. Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Rob, this resolution, can you kind of state exactly what it basically does in difference to, of course, a letter of credit or a bond?
Mayor, Council, yes, this is essentially, again, it's a legislative mandate. It's an assurance that if the city decides it doesn't want to do the cleanup anymore, that we will actually budget the funds to make sure the cleanup will be done. Or in the case that there's a bankruptcy, it's essentially it works as like I think a good analogy would be like a co-signature on a loan. Essentially, it'll go up on the sort of scale of debts as to what goes first. So therefore, there'll be some money aside to make sure that this, again, the mitigation, the elimination of the toxins occurs.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-130. Counselor Abeyta-Stuvey?
Yes.
Counselor Vasquez?
Yes.
Counselor Bencomo?
Yes.
Counselor Sorg?
Yes.
Counselor Flores?
Yes.
Counselor Gandara?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, next item is 8.3, Resolution 20-131.
This is Gabe Vasquez, move to approve.
Second, this is Yvonne Flores.
Okay,
Second.
motion made by Counselor Vasquez, second by Counselor Flores. And Shear, who's going to discuss this? Catherine Harrison Rogers, Mandy Gus, or Lynn Gallagher?
Mayor, City Council, this is Lynn Gallagher from the Quality of Life Department. I know you probably can't see me. I'm having a little bit of a problem with the video, but let me go ahead and share the screen. Can everyone see the screen, even though you can't see me, which is not necessarily a bad thing? As a reminder for City Council, on February 20th, the council met and for a work session, and during that work session, there was a joint presentation made by Community Development Department, Economic Development Department, Quality of Life, and also at that time the Executive Director, David Armijo, came and spoke on behalf of South Central Regional Transit District. The meeting at that work session talked about the El Paseo corridor and plans that had been developed over the course of a decade to revitalize the district and make it more viable, not only for the community, but for visitors and for NMSU students. On the screen in front of you is the timeline that was discussed during that meeting and the various plans that have been implemented and created over the course of the decade. So community plans that have been involved, Elevate Las Cruces, which is our current plan, and the Active Transportation Plan, Affordable Housing Plan, Consolidated Plan, HUD programs, Parks and Recreation Master Planning, Infill Development Plan, and Complete Street Policies. El Paseo activity and redevelopment. Over the course of this decade, several things have occurred along the El Paseo corridor, and the slide in front of you is going over some of those areas: the El Paseo Plaza renovations, Las Cruces High School renovation, the Kmart reuse and subdivision, Bracito Plaza, and then infrastructure improvements, including Idaho Avenida de Mesilla Road, Diet, and then El Paseo intersection median and pedestrian crossings, and then ongoing paving management and safety enhancements. Again, another reminder, some of the items in the statutory and financial toolbox include tax increment development district, public improvement district, business improvement district, and metropolitan redevelopment areas, along with some non-financial options that Mandy Gus had discussed during that work session. For the transportation piece, transit actions have been ongoing in that area, including but not limited to a 30-minute route configuration, which with the creation of Route 2, and then route expansions, and then our ongoing short-range transit plans, and helping to develop and identify marketing opportunities with NMSU. So some of the considerations that came out of that work session were complete street design, active transportation improvements, and urban mixed-use corridors, and then redevelopment, other corridor and center priorities, the Amador Proximo, the Councilor Vasquez had mentioned, the Solano and East Lomond, those kind of areas, and then Apodaca area. And then maintaining an equitable transit system is something that's critical to this piece, making sure that our transit system reaches those that are most in need of its use. So at that work session, Mayor and City Council had made the determination that they would like to see a committee and a work group established to talk about further plans and present in front of the newly reconfigured PRCs to determine how best can the ongoing work of El Paseo be created. How can it then become prioritized in our Elevate Las Cruces planning and then in the city's strategic planning? So council had requested city council membership from District 1, 2, and 3, the chancellor and chief of staff or the president at NMSU or their respective delegates, Las Cruces Public Schools superintendent and Las Cruces Public Schools transportation department director, David Armijo or his delegate from South Central Regional Transit District, a representative from Mesilla Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization, Sharon Thomas, who is a community member and the Mayor Pro Tem Emeritus, Jake Redfern, who is the principal at NAI First Valley Commercial as a business member, and then various City of Las Cruces staff members, including, again, but not limited to, a member from the Transit Department, Economic Development, Community Development, and then various nonprofit and for-profit business leaders as will be identified specifically by each of the respective city council members. So that is a quick overview of the creation. The resolution creates that ad hoc committee and sets forth their expectation and what they would do. And the expectation would be to then go forward and present a report to the PRCs, which would then be brought as a recommendation in a regular council meeting and then potentially added to the Elevate Las Cruces strategic planning efforts. With that, your council options are available for you to review, and there are various numbers of individuals available to answer specific questions related to specific departments, but I also stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Lynn. Before I go to Councilor Vasquez and Abeta Stuvey, I just need to clarify a couple things. So I pulled back my notes here. I have this working group, David Armijo, which I think I saw. You want to go back to that list, please?
Yes.
Okay. David Armijo, I have someone from Roadrunner Transit. Are they there? My actual participant screen is blocking about half of this, so I can't see too well. Do you have someone there?
Mayor, City Council, Lynn Gallagher, the list in the resolution includes the members. So one council member from each of the districts and then a member. Are you asking about staff members?
Someone from Roadrunner Transit.
Yes, sir. Mike Bartholomew will be a representative from Roadrunner Transit.
Okay, Mayor. And then I have down here MPO, which I see, NMSU representative, which I see. I have specifically David Ware from Community Development. I don't see him. Mandy Gus, I think you mentioned, or no, I don't see her there.
Mayor, City Council, are you looking at the presentation or the actual resolution? The resolution is intended.
I'm looking at what you're showing right here. I'm reading off my notes. That's where I wanted that task force to be. It was close. There was just a few changes here, but for the most part, it's pretty close. I will say that I'm going to start it off. So if we need to advertise that there's going to be 4 members of City Council present, I'm just going to kick it off. I want to share with them the vision that I would like to see, and I want to go. I would prefer to go in that direction, because I want these 15-minute increments, not 30 minutes, not 45 minutes, 15 minutes. And we need to figure out how to get there. So that's why I want that task force there, and I think that we can get it done. So that's why I was just kind of going over the various people that you have here, and I think for the most part, I'm happy with those. I just want to make sure someone from economic development is there, and someone from community development. I had down David Ware. Larry Shannon can be there too, but I had David Ware.
If I may, in the resolution itself, I'm trying to pull that up as we speak. In the actual resolution itself, it spells out in more specificity the actual members by their title to make sure that the list is more consistent. As we had limited spacing in the slide, I did not add every single name in the slide, but if you can pull up, let me see if I don't know if I have the capability of pulling up the actual resolution. Hold on one second. But it could be in your packets if you wanted to take a look.
Yeah, that's the challenge that I have right now is the laptop. I think I can access a lot of the information. My iPad, I can't, or at least I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm just going off of this, and so
Mayor,
I think we're good.
Mayor,
Yes,
if you
David?
don't mind me jumping in real quick, and Lynn and council, if you guys want to go to different counselors for questions, or if you have additional questions, Mayor, go ahead and do that, and I will look up the resolution based on the email that was sent out by our city clerk, and from there I'll be able to get the resolution down for you and then read off the list of the additional staff members that are identified.
Okay, I appreciate that. So Councilor Vasquez, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I was just looking at the resolution. I see that we don't have a cap on members, which is good because I know we had discussed getting small business owners and nonprofit leaders and representatives as part of this working group. I think that's really important to be able to include the broader community. I know there's lots of folks that have been working on this for a long time. I did have a couple of questions related to this process. And Mayor, thanks for being willing to kick this off. In terms of the length of this working group coming to some type of product that actually would be recommended to the PRC or respective PRCs before it then goes to council. I know we talked about the length of time that this El Paseo blueprint has been sitting on the shelf, and it's a considerable amount of time, right? I think a lot of folks put a lot of good work into the El Paseo corridor blueprint many years ago, including some of the members of this committee and some of the existing members of the city council here. I think Mr. Sorg, Councilor Sorg, and absolutely Sharon Thomas had big roles to play. And so I'm wondering what the timeline is on actually coming to some type of decision from this ad hoc committee that then goes to a PRC and then potentially goes to the council, because my fear is that we've already planned considerably and consistently, and so just wanting to think through what that timeline looks like before we actually have a resolution for action.
Thanks for the question, Councilor Vasquez. I know that I think it was staff's request that it go to PRC. To be candid with you, that's why I want to get this committee going and put it in that trajectory to move forward. I can't remember who the members of the PRC are, but if they are one and the same that are the districts 1, 2, and 3, then I think that can be bypassed. Be candid with you, but if they're not, then we can obviously go for a showing for them to see. But so that's a good question, and let me get to Councilor Abeta Stubbe, and then we'll have that all for more discussion, perhaps.
And I do have just one more quick comment, Mayor.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the other comment is the discussion, and Ms. Gallagher, I think you had incorrectly on the slide the mention of North Solano versus South Solano in terms of the corridor redevelopment area that we talked about that could be done in conjunction with this particular project. I think the thought was that we could draw a line around the map on a adjacent area of South Solano to El Paseo, right? Because there's connecting streets from, Idaho, Lowman, Missouri, that create kind of business and residential corridors into an area that is very similar, I would say, demographically, and also a heart of a lot of our local small business community. And so I have to keep going back to this because I think we're missing out on an opportunity to actually impact an entire part of the city versus just one particular street, and want to advocate for South Solano to be included as part of this revitalization project. As I mentioned, the transportation corridors are there. They're heavily used. It's an area where a lot of small business owners have put a lot of investment into. They've made a lot of sacrifices, especially for very small businesses with not a lot of capital to set up their businesses in a part of town that, to be quite honest, probably isn't very desirable for a lot of people, a lot of new business owners. But it's where you can find cheap rent. It's where you can find locations to actually open up a storefront if you're just starting out as a mom and pop business. And I always say that about South Solano. It's where it's really part of the heart of our small business community here, and would want to honor so much of that work of our business community, because I think that they deserve to have upgraded infrastructure, better transportation, a facade and an identity to their neighborhood and their community that they can be proud of. And so I really think that if we're going to do something big here, that we need to include South Solano from Missouri to Lowman. And that's where a huge chunk of small businesses are. And again, that big piece of residential, those residential neighborhoods that connect El Paseo and Solano are also a part of the city that I think needs to be invested in. And so I just want to advocate for that. I know this ad hoc committee doesn't specify what particular area they're going to work on, but I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't start off conversations with this ad hoc committee without including South Solano as part of the larger redevelopment corridor. So I just want to continue to push for that, because I think it's really important that we take this opportunity, especially with all these smart people in the room together, to think through this whole part of town rather than just El Paseo. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Vasquez, thank you for those comments. As I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, but this is primarily for the El Paseo connection between the university and downtown. And I think I mentioned to you that, I'm sitting right here on South Solano, and that I would have a hard time being a part of this because my building is on South Solano. What I would prefer is that we get this portion going, and then I would turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Gandara to let her take over that separate section. Because one of the things that not only did I was looking at the corridor, but a possible TED for the El Paseo area. Now, after that's, I think, going and everything's in place, then I would like to remove myself from any discussion, because, like I said, I'm right here. I mean, that's, if you see me looking from time to time, I'm looking on South Solano right now. So
Sure.
Anyways,
And Mayor, City Council, if I could just address a couple of those things quickly and address the membership, I was able to pull up the actual resolution. So if Mayor and Councilor Vasquez, the wording in the resolution states that the City Council hereby creates the ad hoc committee for the purposes of reviewing the El Paseo blueprint and considering ideas and approaches relative to expanding, revitalizing, and enhancing access along the corridor, including enhanced or expanded public transportation options. So I believe that based on that language, it encompasses, while I apologize for not having it corrected north to south, but it encompasses what does the El Paseo blueprint say, what opportunities are there for expansion, and then further to that, the representation piece are everything that I listed on the spreadsheet, and then it went into further detail to say Mandy Leatherwood Gus, Economic Development Department, David Weir, Community Development Department, Mike Bartholomew, Quality of Life Department, Transit Program, and then various profit and not-for-profit business leaders as selected by each of the 6 city council members.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do recall the actual area that was the El Paseo blueprint, or at least the original blueprint, I believe ended at Espina. And so we're really literally just one, couple of blocks away from expanding that to Solano. And so it sounds like this resolution gives us the opportunity to discuss that and the blueprint at large, in addition to the transportation opportunities that you were talking about, Mayor. And I, wholly and fully respect your due diligence in making sure there's no conflict of interest within your position and this particular project. I just wouldn't want the residents of that particular area or business owners to miss out just because of a perceived conflict of interest, because my job, in my district is to make sure that folks are getting the things that they need. And so I want to do my job to advocate for them in this particular area. And so any way that we can, both have, have your guidance and your leadership in setting the direction, especially on the transportation piece of this, and then also making sure that we can have those discussions about including South Solano in a meaningful way, especially as it comes to the formation of the lines around the map for a potential TID. That I would really want to make sure that we are able to focus on that through this process. Like I said, it's not every day we form an ad hoc committee and bring a lot of really smart people into a room that are all invested in our community. So we'd want to take the opportunity to think just a little bit beyond the original blueprint, one street over literally to Solano. So thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and thank you, Councilor and Vasquez. I mean, if I was a private citizen, yeah, I'd be your biggest cheerleader. But what I'd like to do, what I envision is that once we get this settled, I mean, and even the ideas put forth and the direction put forth, then I have no problem in stepping back, letting Mayor Pro Tem Gandara take the other portion, then you work with her, and then I stay out of that part. I really do. I really believe I need to. But the first part, if we can break it down into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 will be the El Paseo project, get it going, how we have it structured, and perhaps a TID. And then after that, phase 1, and it doesn't have to be bricks and mortar. I mean, just in concept and council supporting this. And then phase 2 can be the South Solano, as you discussed, and get with Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. And then I just remove myself from any discussion on that, if that would be great. Okay, Councilor Abeta Stuving, Councilor Sorg, and then Councilor Flores.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Gallagher. I had a couple questions regarding more of the membership. I've had a few residents approach me asking about how they would be able to participate once this moves forward. And beyond talking to council members or other direct members, at what point will they be able to have that participation during this process?
Mayor, Council, I think that typically once the resolution is, if the resolution is approved, then city staff would work with the city manager's office to determine how to do the initial conversation. The mayor has aired an intention to have a role in that. So figuring out how do we set up the first meeting, how do you align it with and give all of those members an opportunity to review the blueprint. It would sort of be an unfair for someone to come to a meeting without having reviewed what has already been done well in the city. And so to be able to give them that opportunity and then set a date forward that they could then have their initial meeting and then figure out those future meetings with the ultimate goal of them having a recommendation to take to PRC. I understand the desire to perhaps skip over that process, but I think it can be a good process to look at, have the PRC take a look at some of these recommendations if we are going to build this into the Elevate Las Cruces and make it a strategic priority for the city, it's an important piece to that. But those folks should, I would say that each of you in your district should start reaching out to people in the nonprofit and profit world and get a list of membership to send forward to the city manager's office.
Okay, and this is not people that are in profits, nonprofits, businesses. This is actually residents that are coming to me that are very, they've lived in the area for a long time and want to be able to have that input as well. And so I just want to make sure that we are hearing them at the same time and level that we are with some of the other communities. My second one, I noticed we did have a couple specific names on the first slide.
Excuse me, Counselor, can I interrupt? I think, I thought I saw his hand. David Dollahan wanted to jump in real quick. He may want to talk to what you just got done saying. David, you there?
Coming online, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes, the only thing I was going to add was related to Councilor Abeyta-Stuve's comments. The meetings for this ad hoc committee would all be done in public, and they would be advertised as public meetings. So that's where the public would have opportunity to participate. So that it was relatively minor.
So there's no video conferencing then? We're going to wait until we start meeting in public to do this? Is that what you're saying?
Mr. Mayor, I would offer that we'd get the meetings, the group started and together, but we're going to have to discuss something as to how to allow the public in general to participate in groups like this. We're dealing with that on other committees already through Zoom or some other mechanism. GoToMeeting, which may have simpler restrictions that allows a larger group to participate. So we're going to have to address that sooner rather than.
Okay, thank you, David. And I apologize, Councilor Abeyta-Stuve. I thought, go ahead and continue, please.
That's all right. I was going to say on the previous slide where it had specific names on there, I take it that we've already chatted with both of those individuals and they wish to participate. You had, and I understand the history of why former Mayor Pro Tem Sharon Thomas is on there. I was curious about the second name and the relation that they have with the El Paseo corridor.
Talking about Jake Redfern?
Yes, Mayor.
His firm, they either have a lot of property there in that area, and if we're gonna surcharge somebody, we want to make sure that they know about it.
Okay, so they would fall under the property owner sort of tax?
Business, maybe?
Yeah. So they would fall under the profit and nonprofit business leaders, and that would be a person that would fall under that category?
Probably. Yeah,
Okay.
they have quite a few properties along there, and if we're gonna.
Then Mayor, would there be an opportunity then to place a section for a resident to have a place on the ad hoc committee?
I don't see why not. I think each council member will have a chance to appoint someone. Do you want to appoint both a business and a residential?
I believe so. I think it's important to get both perspectives on there.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that. We'll probably, I don't know if we need to make an amendment or we can just have that available. Because, a lot of them may not necessarily be able to attend all the meetings, but if you have that opportunity to join, I don't have a problem.
Thank you. I just want to give them an opportunity to be able to have a meaningful voice, just as much as the business owners and the nonprofits.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilor Sword?
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to show my appreciation to Councilor Vasquez for bringing up the fact that this has been going on for over 10 years. Yeah, it's been something I've always wanted to move forward and have some progress on it. But also the connection between the Policy Review Committee too for infrastructure and sustainability and transportation. There's some overlap there. I think it's obviously there's some overlap there. And I think that would be a good thing, that we could use both committees to maybe get things done faster or better or both. And so therefore, I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank the rest of the council for wanting to move forward on this. This is excellent. I'm looking forward to an awesome corridor there in the future, and one that's safe. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Flores?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Gallagher, for your presentation. I am leaning towards Councilor Vasquez's suggestion or recommendation, maybe it's a demand, I don't know, that we not work on this resolution until we maybe add Solano. So we'd have to amend the resolution or change the resolution. And I know that Councilor Vasquez has been talking about this for quite some time. And apropos of how long it's taken to implement, well, we all know that we have I think our strategic plan is really on mark. I think when we put things, and Ms. Gallagher, I believe, suggested that we should make it part of our strategic plan because we have been on target. We have been timely with that. But I know that Walt Rubel had an article on March 20 of this year, of 2020, not 2010 or 2009, about the Paseo plan, the Paseo corridor. So, I'd hate to see 10 years go by and have another city council looking at this, except maybe the mayor and Gil, who seem to be the forevers on this council. But we really have to look at passing resolutions and plans that can be implemented and not sit, as Walt Rubel said, if you want to look at a plan, maybe it's sitting somewhere in City Hall, some dusty shelf or something. So I think that I would like to see the change that Councilor Vasquez has made. I think that we have to make that whole area a lot more vital, and it'll also be almost a circle. You can just, it'll be a loop instead of just making it a straight line from, because the objective here, as discussed, was to connect the university to the downtown area. But I think it'll be a lot better to, I think it'll definitely be an economic booster and to include Solano. And I would also, I don't know, I left my magic wand at home, so I really don't know how long it would take for this to start really materializing, but I would really suggest that we make it a priority.
Councilor Flores, do you want me participating in this?
Probably not, and only because I'm suggesting that it be expanded to Solano, and you've said that you'd like to recuse yourself from that part of it, and your suggestion that it be in 3 phases, not for any other purpose except for purposes of discussing it. Maybe you shouldn't be in that. It's up to you.
Okay, well, it'll probably take about another 5 years. I'll be candid with you. If you want to put in Solano and start all over again. Why has it taken so long for the El Paseo plan of, I guess it was the 1900s, or was it already 2020, whenever it was, 10 about
years?
10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was about 2010. So
what, it's taken that long? and it hasn't really been fully actualized. And now we've already have another plan that we're working on right now. So
Yeah, no, those are good questions. But the downtown was the priority. And we already had we're going to begin the TID. And now that has worked out, of course, now we're with everything going on. But so it made no sense if we already had identified the downtown area to, we hadn't even done the TID yet. So if we're going to do a TID, it was going to be the downtown first. Now that we've been able to know how to do that, and we've been able to recognize that it was or had been the place, or quite a few people were gathering. Now we wanted to be able to get the university back and forth to the downtown. If we go and try to now add Solano, and that's why I asked if we could please put that off to like phase 2, so that I could help move this forward. That would what I would prefer. But by adding South Solano, and I'm talking once we get this going. I'm not talking about a long time here. We're probably talking, well, it depends on when we can meet, but 2 to 3 months, and then we add another phase, and then after that, I divest myself from that. But if you do it now, I'm going to have to recuse myself this whole thing. That's the way I look at it.
Well, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we do. It was a suggestion made by Councilor Vasquez that we have, that we include Solano.
Yes, but he was agreed to let us do it in 2 phases.
Mayor, Councilor Flores, may I? This is Lynn Gallagher for the record.
Yes, Lynn.
May I just address that? So the current resolution, the way that it's written, talks about looking at, the ad hoc committee would look at the El Paseo blueprint, and they would consider approaches relative to expanding, revitalizing, and otherwise enhancing the area. I think that the term extending may be broad enough that during the work session, it can be phased in to allow for a little bit of flexibility if that meets with Councilor Vasquez and Councilor Flores' intention. We understood it based on the work session that South Solano, that there was that need, trying to be as flexible as possible and saying we would like to look at it, look at the blueprint, determine what steps can be taken, and then what needs to be expanded or extended or revitalized. If that meets the expectation of council, that word is in there.
Exactly. Thank you, Lynn, for clarifying that. And that's where I was hoping to get a separate resolution to also look at including South Solano as a phase 2, and that to be worked upon after we get this kind of off of the blueprint, so to speak. So let me go to
this is David Weir. Could I add some comment?
Sure.
A couple of things to keep in mind. I agree with Lynn's assessment that the current resolution is loose enough that you can expand it, but also keep in mind that you've adopted Elevate Las Cruces, and South Solano is identified as a corridor worthy of redevelopment and reinvestment. And so I think these 2 projects can work hand in hand. My recommendation would be if you wanted to amend this resolution, you just say that it also work with the recommendations of Elevate Las Cruces, or I think there's enough flexibility written into it as you give instructions to that ad hoc committee and what your expectations are that they can evaluate the South Solano corridor also.
Thank you, David. Let me go to Councilor Vasquez and then Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gandara. Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilor Flores. I appreciate your words of support. I think looking even at the El Paseo blueprint, right, the recommendations that are made in that plan are 10 years old. And so I honestly don't even know how updated they are in respect to our actual planning for that particular corridor based on the changing demographics of El Paseo. I'm willing to bet more than 50% of the businesses that were there 10 years ago aren't even there anymore, have changed hands. And so I still think that there's a considerable amount of new bodies of work to be done on El Paseo in terms of a redevelopment strategy that also encompasses new technology, that encompasses new practices and things like rainwater harvesting, right? That wasn't included maybe 10 years ago because it wasn't a, maybe it wasn't the way to plan for these particular areas in the past. And so I don't see that it would be too much more work to include an adjacent residential and business street, which is Solano, again, to that body of work, because I think that's going to have to be done anyway. Like the blueprint corridor can't really be executed as it is today because it's 10 years old. And so I actually am very interested in amending this ordinance to include the recommendations of the Elevate Las Cruces plan to develop South Solano as a corridor. Now, how that work gets done in this as part of this ad hoc committee, perhaps Mayor, you solely work on the pieces in the ad hoc committee that relate to El Paseo, but it's agreed upon, especially in this ordinance and by consensus of council, that South Solano will be part of this overall plan. I don't want to wait another 5 years to bring this home to my constituents because, frankly, I don't know if I'll be here, but also I just think that we're missing out on a big opportunity. And the reason I'm so interested in South Solano, I mentioned this at my first meeting, is that, South Solano is at a part of the city that faces very elevated levels of the social determinants of poverty that impact our overall public health, our public safety, our quality of life. And so you have people living in adjacent neighborhoods that are suffering, right, from the effects of poverty in a lot of ways. That includes child abuse, domestic violence, child welfare, I went on a ride along in my neighborhood, as well, and the officers were pointing out exactly where the hot spots were in my neighborhood and what were the number one things that were happening there. And it was, drug use, definitely domestic violence, alcohol use. And so unless we lift up South Solano, we're not lifting up our neighboring residents. And so to me, it's like, the showing of investment in this part of town shows that we care about this neighborhood, shows that we care about the people who live there, that they're not forgotten, that we're not going to pass them over simply because of a potential conflict of interest. I just want to make sure that we can draw those lines around that map that includes South Solano, whether it's two separate maps or it's one map. I just want that work to start now because I think that part of the city deserves it, right? We have other parts of the city that are doing great. Economically, their neighborhoods are built in ways that I think promote really healthy styles of living and good quality of life. And so I just think we need to go back in there and reinvest in this part of town. And so I would like to offer that amendment, Mayor, and I think that there is a way to work around it in this ad hoc committee so that you can just participate perhaps in the El Paseo piece. But I just think that work should start now. I'm not sure that it should start in phases.
Thank you. Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mayor.
You know what? I think I skipped over Councilor Sorg, but go ahead and then I'll go to Councilor Sorg after you.
No, if Councilor Sorg is next, go for it.
Councilor Sorg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All these words are true. We have a lot of areas in the city that are need help. But I don't think we should slow down or not. That's not the best way to put it. I don't think we should be adding that to the El Paseo corridor, but we should be doing it simultaneously by way of the Elevate Las Cruces comprehensive plan. We need to work on all of it. There's just no way around getting around it. But I think adding it to the El Paseo corridor ad hoc committee is not going to help that process. Sure, keep it going, but to add it onto this, I don't think we'll lose our focus on El Paseo. And as far as what's in the El Paseo blueprint, there is not a whole lot to change there. The infrastructure that was recommended is definitely still in play, and that's what the main part of it, of the corridor blueprint is, as well as the zoning. As you can see from our agenda today, we're going to have a zoning coming up as the proposed ordinances for our next meeting. And so these are things that I think we shouldn't water down El Paseo Corridor Ad Hoc Committee with added more things, but instead we should be working on those other areas, not just South Solano, but many other areas in the city that are needing help to cure the poverty problems and all the other social problems that we have in the city. So I'm against adding that to this ad hoc committee, but instead come back and have a whole new resolution dealing with South Solano or any other part of the city. Mayor.
Well, thank you, Councilor. All I wanted to do was probably at our next work session or council meeting was to have another wording for an additional phase, South Solano. And just like I said, just so I could remove myself from it. I've never asked Jennifer if she's there, let me see if she's there, if there's a conflict there. I mean, I've disclosed it forever. It looks like I don't see her. No. I guess Rob must be filling in.
No, I'm
Rob,
here.
are you there?
I'm here.
You are there. Okay.
Right.
So Jennifer, let me just before I get to Councilor Mayor Pro Tem, so my office sits right here on Solano and near Solano, Missouri, and don't get me wrong. Half of on one hand, sure, I'd love to see everything get built up here, and I have no problem in paying an assessment if we were to ever do a TID down here in South Solano. But what I didn't want to do was get that convoluted with what we're doing here, because then I feel like I need to abstain getting this off the ground. And all I want to do is kind of like, I guess if you would, like split the question and have one portion move forward, and then quickly after that, a month or so later, so that I can delineate between the two. And if they were to join themselves together, okay, that's fine. But I just wanted to get the El Paseo portion going. What's your thought on whether or not I have a conflict or not?
Mayor and Council, the conflict is up to you. If you believe that you have a conflict, you can remove yourself. If you think there is a conflict, but it won't affect your voting, you can give it to the membership, and they can determine if they believe there's a conflict and you should step away or not. If you've disclosed that you think you might have a conflict, then that's where your duty is, and the rest of the council can say that they either believe that you do or you don't. But if you're saying that you can still remain and proceed fairly and not with any bias, then that's entirely your discretion.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
And Mayor, Councilor, this is Lynn Gallagher again. If I could just provide some information to the council about the way that the resolution was created. The original work session on February 24th was narrowly tailored specifically around transportation and access along the corridor of El Paseo from the Convention Center and NMSU to downtown. And so this particular resolution was really identified in that narrow work session piece. And I recognize that council had brought in other opportunities, which was why the word extending was added to it in case there were additional flexibilities. I just wanted to provide that point of context.
Well, thanks, Lynn. So, I mean, if we wanted to have another resolution for the South Solano area, I mean, that probably wouldn't be that hard to come put together, would it?
Mayor, City Council, that question is beyond my ability to answer. I think that would have to be perhaps a meeting with the city manager's office and community development, economic development. What plans have already been made? What work has already been done along the South Solano? What is Elevate Las Cruces really becomes the pivotal point in these discussions. How do we wrap everything around what Elevate Las Cruces work did. It was a large undertaking, and I think it's an important undertaking.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, because I don't, until we have some type of a diagram or draft of where we wanted to have this be connected to, it's kind of hard to put that on there. I mean, I know about South Solano, but I don't know how in conjunction with the El Paseo corridor it could be intersected. So, that's why I said it's just, I don't know. I would prefer that we just stick to this here, and you've got my commitment that we'll do South Solano. I just, this is the focus. I know Councilor Vasquez wants to do this, and frankly, I don't mind it either. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to, remove myself from any discussion when it comes to South Solano. And this is by adding it on here, I think it really puts me in a really tough bind. Thank you, Lynn. So we have Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, and then Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would agree. Speaking on behalf of District 1 and the TID that I have in the downtown, or that we have in the downtown, I can tell you there's a number of people who were very concerned that the Mosquito Historic District wasn't part of that TID, if you will. They do everything aside from having specific funding go over there to increase businesses, the look, infrastructure, those kinds of things for the Mosquito Historic District. So I would agree wholeheartedly that we need to incorporate South Solano as part of the El Paseo corridor. And I would also like to see an amendment. Lynn, if you could, and you did have a particular slide that spoke to the progress that was made in the last 10 years as it relates to the El Paseo corridor. I don't want people to think that nothing has happened. Things have happened there, but this is really to elevate what we're trying to do, not only have an ad hoc committee, but maybe a TID or some sort of assessment that would help sort of elevate the El Paseo corridor, not only in transportation's sake, but all, infrastructure and whatnot. So Lynn, if you would, there was a slide in terms of the different things that have occurred in the last 10 years as it relates to that particular plan.
Mayor, City Council, Mayor Pro Tem Gandara, can you see that my share? Are you still sharing my screen?
Yes, we have slide 9 where it pertains to the ad hoc committee. I'm specifically asking you to put up the slide in terms of the progress that has been made as it relates to the El Paseo corridor.
Can you see that?
We only see slide 9.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is David Weir again. Just to add, the slide covers some of the major projects that have taken place over the last 10 years, but the document hasn't gone dormant. Councilor Sorg indicated you have some zone changes later on your agenda.
Right.
The plan was referred to and used as a reference point to rezoning. And so anytime a development project is proposed for that area, the blueprint is again referenced to, and the policies and the actions that are in it go directly to revitalizing that stretch of the road and improving it in any way they can.
Right.
So you're exactly true. The plan has been used over the past period of time, but a lot of it is based on private investment taking place. You'll see some of the larger projects that have been done to the streets or the projects that the city had control and budget for and do. And so now it's kind of the next stage. And so I think it's really a good time for this committee to be established, because it gives an opportunity to look at other incentives or tools that could be used to continue that investment. And then going back to something that Ms. Gallagher said earlier, one of the big things from your work session was how to establish increased transportation between the downtown and the convention center. And so that was one of the primary considerations for putting this ad hoc committee together. So I just want to reiterate that what had been said earlier.
Yeah, thank you, David. I appreciate that. Just want to remind folks, although it's been, as David Weir suggested, more private driven, again, with the next phase with the infrastructure development that definitely needs to occur. And I would agree that the transportation, getting from here to New Mexico State in 15-minute increments is a piece of it. But I also want to remind folks that Solano, especially South Solano, is part of that. And I'm really sensitive to Councilor Vasquez's plea. I think that, I wasn't around when the TID was developed for the downtown, but if I was, I would definitely be speaking to ensure that our Mesquite Historic District was incorporated into that particular TID. It isn't, and yet, and I see some of the struggles as it relates to infrastructure, especially around, and Councilor Vasquez, thank you for reminding us about the social determinants of health. What's happening? You can't walk in a safe way around the Solano area. There, in fact, I will compare the Mesquite Historic District probably has more businesses and than we did in the downtown area, and it's very similar to what we're talking about today in this particular instance. So I won't belabor the fact. I would love to see the amendment and include South Solano. I think we would be missing an opportunity to really think about what could we incorporate as it relates to transportation and this sort of, I see it as a square, right, from New Mexico on Solano and beyond. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Bencomo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The conversation that I remember us having at the previous work session on this was one of a committee that would look at this expanded area to figure out the best approach to revitalizing the area. Where we were presented with, what I remember is that we were presented with different ideas like MRAs and bids and PIDs and TIDs. And I remember the conversation we landed on was, let's figure out an ad hoc committee to figure out the best way forward. Because a lot of us felt like the idea of the trolley, while it was great, it was also a little bit putting the cart before the horse, given the current condition of the El Paseo and South Solano corridors. The part of El Paseo corridor that is in my district, in District 4, is small but vital. And right now, sitting on District 4 is an empty Village Inn, an empty Burger King, an empty Payless Shoes, an empty old Mexican restaurant, an empty Italian restaurant behind Albertsons. It's a piece of the Mesquite historic neighborhood that often feels left out in conversations about investment. And so I think that it's somewhat offensive to say that including a broader area up to Solano would water the plan down, when in fact I think it would strengthen it. It would strengthen it because it is improving even more people's quality of life. And yes, I agree that a ton of other parts of town also need this investment, and I would love to have those conversations later down the road. Like, I would love to have some sort of TID or some sort of investment down the Boccaccio corridor, right, where there's also a ton of empty business locations, facilities, and where it has a great potential to be a great part of our city. Part of the resolution, when I was reading this, it even says that City Council unanimously suggested that a public task force would be assembled to review and make recommendations for implementation of enhancements along El Paseo corridor, which shall include the area up to Solano Drive. So I think it's interesting that we're now talking about an amendment when we had all sort of unanimously agreed at the work session that that's exactly what we wanted. That it felt like a really good investment and a really good idea that actually would only make this plan stronger. And I hear that, Mr. Mayor, and I think if I was a resident, just you know, from the outside looking in, looking at into this idea of what council wanted to do, I would highly, very much respect you for saying like this puts me in a weird position, and also you're naming it. You're you're being very transparent and honest, and the reality is that Councilor Vasquez can't take a seat back to his district because one of us happens to have a locale in his district. And so, you know, I would agree that I think it's imperative that we expand this plan, that if we're going to do some serious investment in this area, which I think really needs it, that we think bigger, not smaller.
Thank you, Councilor. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind having South Solano in here. I would love to. So basically, all you're going to see really happen is Mayor Pro Tem Gandara is going to take over on sheep herding this through, because I just don't feel that, you know, my instinct just tells me it's not good. It just does. I mean, I'm just not going to do that. But that's okay. I mean, I'll work on some other projects. So who else needs to?
Let's go work on Picacho if you want, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, okay, sure, no problem. I need something to do. Okay, so who's spoken so far? Because nobody, unless you all want to talk again. Looks like Councilor Vasquez. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you to my colleagues on the council for the support. I think what it comes down to it for me, having been in this position long enough to understand better how funds flow into our communities, is that I want that first map that's drawn for an MRA or a TID to include South Solano, because if we're not generating money for this project now and putting it back into this business and residential community, Mayor, as you said, it's not going to happen for another 5 years. It's not going to happen for another 10 years, because I know what the excuses will be, and it will be, we're too busy working on El Paseo, we're too busy working on this corridor, and I really can't take that. I can't support that. And I want to make sure that that first round of investment that gets generated through some of the different tools that Mandy Gus presented to us, that South Solano is included in that map and in the way that those lines are drawn. You know, I understand, again, your concerns, Mayor, and I highly respect. I've learned a lot from you and being here in that respect of never trying to mix those two, business with public policy. But again, I know that I drive down South Solano almost every day, and I see that there are some properties that have been invested in, but the majority of them haven't. There's places that are burnt down. There's places that are overgrown with weeds. There's, again, vacant buildings, and there's small businesses that are struggling to survive. And, you know, there's places that are high crime areas that are adjacent to those business areas. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And so, I really would like to make sure that that line that gets drawn around that map is expanded to South Solano, so that that money actually starts flowing into that community. And so,
not a problem. Just know that you know, and I'm just gonna have to abstain. Really. So when they call the vote, that's why I'll be abstaining. I just feel that I have to. I hope you guys understand that. I just do. I just feel like I do. Well, don't get me wrong. I drive by Solano every day. I'm here every day, and I agree. It's a little tough after the lights go out, after it gets dark. So believe me. And I grew up here. I mean, I grew up here 2 blocks away. I went to school, Connolly, Lynn. I drive through your district every day. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Then I know you can sympathize then with. And it hurts to say that, right? I don't know whoever wants to say things like that about their district in terms of how much investment it needs, but it's the truth. And I think hopefully having this honest conversation about that leads us to some good public policy, some really good projects in the area that can really generate hope and community and income and GRT for the city, and let small business owners that have a dream be able to afford an affordable locale in a place they can be proud of, that has pedestrian traffic, that has that has a safe neighborhood that they can count on for customer base and residents that are happy to go across from El Paseo to Solano. I know in talking with Mandy about the potential area of how it would be expanded, El Paseo is adjacent to Solano in the way that it connects from the business corridor from Missouri to Loman, right? There's a natural connection there between Idaho, Missouri, and Main Street up to Loman that connects El Paseo to Solano. And so those are the same, I see it as the same community, to be honest. It's the same, folks that are living there, same type of homes, a lot of really vibrant small businesses in the area. And so I think the lines are there. I think, at this point, unless another counselor has any comments, because I can't see it.
We've got quite a few. We've got
Okay.
Councilor Flores, Mayor Pro Tem. If you don't mind, if we can do that.
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
I'll call on you. Councilor
Thank
Flores?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, colleagues, fellow councilors. I just want to know, I want clarification on the procedure, the step we're at right now. I think that, have you made an amendment motion?
No, Councilor Vasquez has not. We wanted to wait. You were talking, and then looks like, I thought Mayor Pro Tem Gandara wanted to talk too. I thought she did. Well, anyways.
I forgot to lower my hand, Mayor. Sorry.
No, well, I was just asking your, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I was just asking what, we're waiting for the amendment, and then we'll vote on the amendment, correct?
Right.
Is that, okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Looks like Councilor Vasquez. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend then this resolution to include, per the recommendations of Lynn Gallagher, that this ad hoc committee will work with the recommendations of the Elevate Las Cruces plan to include the revitalization of South Solano as part of its body of work.
Okay, there's a motion made by Councilor Vasquez. Is there a second?
Second, by Yvonne Flores.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Yvonne Flores to amend the ad hoc committee, or I'm sorry,
the resolution.
Resolution to include adherence to Elevate Las Cruces to include the South Solano area. Yes? Okay, if there's nothing further, Christine, on the amendment, please.
This is on the motion to amend Resolution 20-131 to include working with the Elevate Las Cruces plan to include the South Solano area. Councilor Abeyta-Stube.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo.
Yes.
Councilor Sorek.
Yeah, this is going to be a good education for all of us here to have this part of the resolution. I'll vote yes.
Okay. Councilor Flores.
Yes.
Councilor Gandara.
Yes.
Mayor.
I will abstain.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on the main motion.
Mayor.
Yes,
Mayor,
David?
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. I wanted to bring to your attention, and I want to thank you also for bringing up the members of the committee for us to review the name from city staff. You might recall one of the things that we had to modify with the PRCs was the fact that city staff cannot be members of committees. Section 2-188 in our code for membership of boards and committees says that no person regularly employed on a full-time basis by the city shall be appointed to any board unless stated otherwise. So with that, we are going to have to amend the membership as well. I would suggest the wording, if Mayor and Council is okay, we would amend it to say to delete the names of the city staff members and then replace that by saying city manager may appoint city staff to participate in the ad hoc committee. City employees may not be voting members. And that wording there will match the same wording that we've put into our PRCs now.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, David, can you repeat that?
Yes, I sure can.
Thank you.
The city manager may appoint city staff to participate in the ad hoc committee, period. city employees may not be voting members.
I move to amend the resolution according to Mr. Maestas' changes.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Vasquez, second by Councilor Sorg to include the city manager will, we have to delete the names of city employees, but the city manager could appoint those city employees to participate as non-voting members. So it's been moved in second. Christine?
This is on the motion to amend Resolution 20-131 to remove the names of the city staff members and to add the wording, the city manager may appoint city staff to participate in ad hoc committees. City employees may not be voting members. Councilor Beta-Stuvi.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo.
Yes.
Councilor Sorg.
Yes.
Councilor Flores.
Yes.
Councilor Gandara.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Okay, so we're back on the main motion. Any questions? Seeing none? Christine?
This is on the motion to approve Resolution 20-131 as amended. Councilor Beta-Stuvi.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Bencomo.
Yes.
Councilor Sorg.
Yes.
Councilor Flores.
Yes.
Councilor Gandara.
Yes.
Mayor.
I'll be abstaining. Okay, so that takes care of those resolutions. Now we'll go to board appointments, which I don't believe we have any. Let me find my sheet here. Okay, no resolution. Okay, so now we'll go to notice of proposed ordinances. Be no public discussion. Council may ask staff for clarification of proposed ordinance. First one is 10.1, Council Bill number 20-030, ordinance number 2292.
Bring it forward. It's Cassandra Gandara.
Bring it forward. Next one is 10.2, Council Bill number 20-031, ordinance number 2923.
Bring it forward, Gabe Vasquez.
Okay, bring forward. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, now we're gonna go to member board reports. Let's see here, I have a couple things. One is there was a picture of some UTV riders that apparently were near the sign over there on west part of the city. I hope that they got together quickly after the ordinance was passed. Because if that happens again, we probably need to shut that down. Okay, so they don't need to be disregarding the governor's order. The second thing is, I'm going to be talking to the members of the public. So we know that Easter is this Sunday, and that, you know, typically in the past, there have been a lot of families gathered together in the park. I'm going to ask that there be no mass gatherings at the park this Easter Sunday. We recognize that and want to remind that parks are closed, and that we ask the public that to please observe that. The governor issued a directive not to gather, and we need to take that very serious. So please do not go to parks and celebrate Easter. Please do your best to stay home. We need to reduce the spread of this COVID-19. These next 2 weeks are crucial. So I'm asking for the public's assistance in that. Okay, that's all I've got. And now I'm going to turn to Mayor Pro Tem Gandara.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the reminder. I think it's important, Mayor, that people hear from you regularly, especially about Easter Sunday, and not only the parks, but at the river and other places that I think people are convening. I feel really strongly that we should also make people aware that that continues to happen, and how important these next 2 weeks are to flatten the curve. So with that said, I was asked on Friday to participate in a press conference with Sheriff Stewart as a woman elected official, speaking on behalf of my lived experience as a single mom, raising children. I couldn't imagine doing that currently with the COVID pandemic. So I found that I'd like to read the statement that Sheriff Stewart read. I think it is definitely warrants repeating. And that is, and I quote, "We are your elected officials and represent you in both the state legislature and here at home in Doña Ana County. As women, we wanted you to know we empathize with the situations many of you now find yourselves in through no fault of your own. We have been single parents. We have survived from paycheck to paycheck. We have been homeless. We are having to homeschool our children now. We have lost our jobs, at times and even been fired. We have been caregivers to our elderly family members. We have faced illnesses with no insurance. We have been divorced and alone. We are you. We have come together today to say we are supporting our citizens to the best of our abilities in these difficult times. We have worked to bring the assets of state and local government to where it is most needed right now. We have a plan, and thus far it is working, but this is where we need to ask for your support. The Department of Health has indicated the next 2 weeks are going to offer two paths, one in which we flatten the curve, or one in which the numbers of those infected of COVID-19 will grow dramatically and drastically. We believe with your help, we can have the first outcome. The curve will not only flatten, but will begin to slope downwards. We are asking you to keep your family members at home as much as possible these next 2 weeks. If your family needs groceries, send one person to the store. Monitor your family's health daily because you know what is normal and what is not. Seek trustworthy sources of information like the New Mexico State Department of Health. Plan, don't panic. There's enough food for everyone, and there is no need to hoard. And we want to remind people to wash their hands for 20 seconds, regularly disinfect your countertops as regularly as you can with cleaning product. Also together, we can fight this invisible threat. It will not be easy. No, we are here for you, but we need your partnership in the days to come. You gave us jobs because you trusted our judgment. We trust yours. Also, Mayor, I wanted to say that it appears like there's been an increase in property crime during this time. Several of my local businesses and businesses around town have been hit hard. Atomic Bomb, Downtown Blues, Jake's Cafe, The Lounge. I'm wanting to hear more specifically from Chief Gallagher what that looks like. And I know that we had a great plan in place, specifically in our downtown area where law enforcement was frequenting that area quite a bit. And I have in the last few days received several emails from constituents about the concern as it relates to what appears like an increase in property crime. I also, and I probably should have led with this, I just want to express my gratitude to staff and administration, law enforcement and fire for all the work that they continue to do for us. I know this is, again, really weird times that we're actually doing Zoom, our meetings and such, and all the work that staff is doing remotely. I just want to give them a shout out. I really, really appreciate everybody and basically all hands on deck trying to continue the work of the city. Let's see. I think that's it for now, Mayor. Thank you.
So before I get to Councilor Let me think here. Which one? I'm so used to just looking over to you. Probably, I guess it's Counselor Sorg. Chief Gallagher, are you there? And would you like to share with us what might be available to protect the downtown area as well as other areas, of course, but specifically?
Yes, I'm here, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, as I had mentioned last time, last year we did have an increase in violent crime in town and a decrease in property crime. Year to date this year, that has flip-flopped. We do have an increase in property crime, specifically in non-residential burglaries, commercial burglaries. So that is accurate. That is not just recent based upon what's going on with the virus. It's a year-to-date trend that we've been seeing. Recently, we have increased the number of officers on patrol with several different things we've done. So we do have more officers on patrol, and they are actually very, very proactively patrolling most of the areas of town. A lot of it downtown, but a lot of the other areas, specifically we get related to the virus. A lot of parks we're visiting, a lot of the schools we're visiting, a lot of the commercial centers we're visiting, trying to show a more visible presence to calm people during this time. I've asked for a more recent analysis of the property crime. Councilor Gandara, I did see your email. I was not aware of any specific trend or pattern that we're experiencing. If I find one, if I've been told of one, I will certainly let you know. But I would like to remind everybody that yes, we are out there and we have increased our patrols. We have more officers on patrol, and we are literally conducting hundreds of extra patrols a week of those sensitive areas, the critical infrastructure, and the areas to prevent mass gatherings.
Thanks, Chief. And so for this weekend, everybody's gonna be around, police, codes, everyone letting the public know if they see these mass gatherings, whether in the park or at the river, as was mentioned, or other public facilities, they'll be out and about.
Yes, that's correct. We will be, again, patrolling those areas. And we recognize, the officers recognize that there are certain areas of town, especially this upcoming weekend with the holiday, that are more frequently visited. We've also reached out to parks and I think public works to try to get some physical barriers put up at some of these parks, to let, just at the parking locations at least, just to let people know it's not business as usual. We'll be back in business in a couple of weeks, but this weekend particularly, we're shut down.
Thanks, Chief.
Sure.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate that. I forgot. I wanted to add one more item to my council comment, and that is that I still am looking for an emergency plan that emergency services is working on. I found a plan online, although it was difficult. I'm still wanting to see a plan in hand. I think it's important that electeds get that and have a deep understanding of what is currently available to people, where they can find it easily online. I don't see that. I am concerned that it feels like Colin and the group there are not fully activated. They're just partially activated. And I also understand that there is not a commander identified. And so I am deeply concerned about that. I've appreciated receiving the notes, Mr. Maestas, daily. That has been helpful. I've appreciated when I've had comments and or ideas and suggestions that you're ensuring that it gets to staff. And one thing that, because of the rise in domestic violence, child abuse, and such, I have asked if we could do some question and answer sessions with experts in the field. And it looks like that is being followed. And so I got a couple of people and sent names on down to you, Del and David, as it relates to people in the business of reducing mental illness and domestic violence, child abuse. And so I've appreciated. I think it's important that we run those not only on our website but on our channel 20, but that there's some opportunity for people to that it gets on this feed regularly, and not only that, in our radio stations. And so thus far, I've appreciated the openness and the willingness to explore my ideas. Again, I am really concerned about this emergency plan. I think it's important that we have that in place, that people can see what, as a constituent or as a citizen of Las Cruces, what their role is as we're moving forward. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So Councilor Flores, you'd be next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. So we've been a little bit derailed because of COVID, but on our tentative agenda, we were to have a presentation by high school students regarding the Day in Government that we held here on February 21. And this was the brainchild of Erica Graff Webster, who's past president of the League of Women Voters, who has been working very closely with LCPS these last few years. And together with the efforts of LCPS and Jamie Rickman and Erica Graff Webster, this wonderful program came into, or event came into being. It was about 4 hours long, maybe 5 hours, and students went to different workshops. And one of the workshops was, excuse me, one of the workshops was sustainability, which was led by Lisa LaRock. Another one was on housing, led by Natalie Green and Sarah Gonzalez. Another one was the Parks and Rec Youth Board, led by Robert Nunez, and Codes, led by Mary Ann Thayas and Mr. Roach. And after participating in workshops, they came up with solutions to presented issues, and they were going to present that today. So that has been delayed, but it was an absolutely wonderful experience. It's amazing how aware our students are. The students who were targeted were not necessarily those who are on the college track. Maybe they are now. But it was really wonderful, and we met after the event with Jamie Patterson, Josie Miller from LCPS, Jamie Rickman, Erica Graffwitcher, and I, to talk about, do a recap, and then we would like to expand it next year. But it was absolutely wonderful, and some of these I think are definitely going to be mayor or certainly future leaders of New Mexico, and certainly of Las Cruces. Now, I would like to say something that I'd like to offer a profound apology and retract my statement specifically to KBIA when I made a flippant statement last week that the media doesn't cover Las Cruces. I should say El Paso stations don't cover Las Cruces. So I want to thank the mayor for making that correction. And I have been watching ABC News, and the mayor has been the first one who comes on and says, thank you for covering us, or something like that. So I don't know if that's a new addition as a result of my comment, but at any rate, I do want to thank Channel 7 for having a physical presence by having Kate Berry and Tom Scott actually here in Las Cruces. My Anna A. Jade is still missing, so I will not read. And I did bring up the issue of curfew at one of our special meetings.
Oh, I think you hit I lost your voice here.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
I'm on. I'm not.
Maybe I did it. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Mayor.
Did you hear me when I spoke?
Yes, we can hear both of you.
So did you hear the last part about?
Hello?
Uh-oh.
Heard it all.
Hello?
I can hear you, Councilor.
So did you hear everything I was saying about the children, the high school students, and my apology to KBIA?
Yes.
We heard it all. We heard it all.
Well, it just, the mayor, I guess, didn't want to hear it, but okay, that's okay. Let's see. I also wanted to share some, well, I wanted to just share that I did bring up the curfew issue, and there were some residents in my district who thought it would be a good idea, but it's probably, and I talked about it with one of my sons. My two sons live in Europe, as some of you know, and they're on lockdown in London and lockdown in Belgrade, in Serbia, and in England. And so I was talking to them about the curfew I wanted to prevent. And so my younger son said, well, Mom, something has to be done because that's the way it spreads. And he said, well, how many exposures? I said, oh, we're over 500 now. And how many deaths? We have 10. He said, is that in Doña Ana County? And I said, no, it's in the state of New Mexico. And then he said, oh. And I said, well, because we don't have a dense population, and we have a huge state, larger than the state of Florida. But kind of put things into perspective, and the mayor pointed out some facts to me, and there may be some unintentional consequences by calling a curfew, and perhaps it is premature to do that. I don't know. And I don't know, I don't know. But I just wanted to share those thoughts, and I just want to tell people that I'm really sorry we're all going through this. Follow the directives, or excuse me, they're actually orders or directives from the governor. Well, I might be wrong about that. They were directives at one point. I think they're orders to 6 feet, keep your distance 6 feet from other people, wash your hands constantly, even when you're home. And if you're sick, stay home, and most of us are staying home. So that's it, and thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flores. My external speaker battery died. That's why I couldn't hear you guys. So I heard you with your apologies. Did you also mention that you were wrong about El Paso and a curfew? Or I don't know. I don't know if you mentioned.
No, I didn't, but I did. I was wrong about that too. And the good thing about all of that is that it shows me that I can be wrong about a lot of things, and I've been wrong before. And I just my apologies really go to KBIA, because I do. I respect Tom and Kate very much, and they do a fantastic job. I was generally talking about how we don't get a lot of coverage. We don't get coverage from Albuquerque, so we don't get a lot of coverage about New Mexico here in Las Cruces. We don't get a lot of coverage here, about Las Cruces. But that's mainly the fault of the FCC, and I've always prefaced my statements by, maybe not always, but certainly mention that the FCC controls how the TV stations are regulated or they get to air stuff. So yes, El Paso as of now, well, who knows, things are changing, because but no, it wasn't, but they were requiring that letter that you were being employed if you were by a police officer. So there must have been some kind of directive from the mayor that was short of a curfew. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Also, a big shout out to our friend Cristal Corrales from Telemundo. So there you go. Telemundo, Fox News, KFOX, and then KVIA. So now we'll go to Councilor Sword.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll add to that. I've told our media how important they are to bringing important information, and especially bringing the truth to the people, and not have false ideas, false things.
Counselor, can you speak up a little bit? I'm kind of losing you in and out.
I think you ought to get a new battery, Mr. Mayor.
No, I have that speaker. It's no longer. It's
okay.
Good.
Yeah, let me get to what I saw here.
You were going in and out.
Well, it's not me. I'm not doing anything different. And so, yeah, I had a conversation with Secretary Bill McCamley of the Workforce Solutions last night. And he explained how things are going with unemployment and unemployment insurance. And then today I got an email from Tracy Bren, the chairman of the board of Workforce Solutions, Workforce Development Board. And according to most recent numbers, the department, they processed more than 60,000 new unemployment claims between March 19th and April 2nd in the state of New Mexico. And that's processing them. So in other words, they've got them going. And so it's not 60,000, and some only some could get through. Calls to the department, of course, have skyrocketed. And so they want to emphasize the fact that it's best to go online on the internet and to the website and make your application for unemployment insurance there. I'm told by Secretary McCamley that you can do it all right online. You don't have to make a phone call at all. As opposed to some states, last night there was a lady talking about how she applied online, and after she was done, they said, well, you have to make a phone call to the department in order to finish your application. And she, for a week or two, had made 50 calls a day and never got through. So hats off to our state of New Mexico, our Secretary McCamley, and especially our Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, for the awesome work they've been doing during this COVID-19 epidemic. So I emphasize again, and Secretary McCamley emphasized again, for those who need to go for unemployment insurance, be sure to go on the internet to the website for Workforce Solutions. It's www.dws.state.nm.us, and then follow the way it goes there. Then for businesses, and I want to point out the fact that both unemployed people and businesses that have stopped running, this is going to be an important part of our recovery from this coronavirus epidemic. It's going to, all the things we've been talking about today, and many of the things we talked about in the past in city council and the city government, they are going to be hinged on everybody getting a vibrant economy going back again, having that money go through the economy. So in the case of businesses that have had to close the doors or cut down, they, under the CARES Act, they can get two different types of relief, three different kinds. Paycheck Protection Program, where you get a loan from the Small Business Administration that if you keep your employees employed, you get to keep the money and not have to pay it back. And they can be as high as $10 million. Economic Injury Disaster Loan Emergency Advance, that is another $10,000 in a loan. Also, the Small Business Administration Express Loan bridge loans rather, you can get $25,000 fast. And there's a debt relief one too. All these are on a first come, first served basis. And so it's very important that our businesses in the Las Cruces apply fast to the Small Business Administration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you for those reminders. And also, again, thanks to the council for last Friday approving that assessment from Avita. I think what you were just talking about, Councilor Sorg, is how they're going to be able to ramp up, because it's going to, it's going to be tough once we get going again. And so we appreciate that. Councilor Bencomo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I love the alignment that's happening today. On my notes, I have literally Easter weekend and to talk about the string of small business break-ins that we saw over the weekend. Mr. Mayor, I wondered if we could I think we should reach out to faith leaders and perhaps create some content this week. I think Bishop Baldacchino, perhaps some of the leaders in the interfaith group, to create some content along with the city, some videos or something to push out before the weekend, so that they can advertise their online virtual Easter masses, and encourage people to stay home, but also encourage people to not have large gatherings in their home either, to celebrate Easter just with your family. And I know that's a really big ask. I know that Easter weekend is a big deal for a lot of families. It is a big deal for my family, and the reality is that if we want to continue celebrating more Easters, that this Easter we're just going to have to stay home and take care of each other and celebrate in our own home. And so I think for me, I think it'd be really important and critical to get some faith leaders from Las Cruces to really put out that message, which I'm sure they have already in their own congregations and their own faith communities, but I think it'd be good to spread that message wider. So I would love to see something like that happen, perhaps in coordination with our PIO office. In terms of the, I don't know if Chief Gallagher is still on, but I also sent an email this morning to David Maestas and the chief. One of those businesses, the lounge, is right up the street from my house in my district, and I don't know if it's a pattern or not. It certainly seems like it, but I'm only, someone looking from the outside on social media, but it certainly feels like it's a pattern. And so I think in the moment where we're asking businesses to be responsible and we're asking businesses to slow down, close up, on top of that, to have break-ins and their things stolen, I can imagine is really difficult. So whatever support we can provide in this moment, I think that would be great from the city. It doesn't have to be monetary, obviously, but whatever support we can provide, that'd be great. Unfortunately, we can't ask crime to cease during pandemic, but I think it's important that we stand with our small business owners who have been violated through property crimes. I'm curious if officers have masks for the weekend, if they have some sort of protective gear, given that they're going to be out in full force, both police officers and codes. Do they have masks and gloves? I know that that's been hard to come by for a lot of our staff.
Chief Gallagher here again, Councilor. Yes, we are relatively well equipped for the near future with personal protective equipment, with the exception of hand sanitizer. Depending upon the nature of the interaction and the amount of interaction with the community that we have, that could be a problem. So that's why we have been limiting our interaction with the public for all but essential purposes. So yes, we do have that. With regard to some of the crime, I wouldn't call it a trend or a pattern yet. I'd have to look at the data. You're right, crime doesn't stop. But we've also redeployed, I'll remind you of that. And although we wish criminals were dumb, they're not, all of them. They recognize that we've redeployed and we're doing other things. And we're going to parks and dispersing people, and we're going to Lowe's and dispersing people. We're not in the areas we usually are. I will also remind you all about the presentations. You saw one, you were running for election, my presentations about crime. Two reasons, primary reasons for crime everywhere, specifically Las Cruces: substance abuse and criminal recidivism. If we don't do something about the criminal recidivism problem in Las Cruces and in New Mexico, it's a huge problem. Something has to be done about it. We're arresting the same people over and over and over again for doing the same thing. If there's no consequences to somebody's action, are they going to change their behavior? Other problem lately is because of the pandemic, some of the people that we've been taking into protective custody from behavioral health problems are not being kept at the facilities as long as they usually are. So those folks are out on the street a lot more. We're seeing a huge increase in crisis intervention calls, and it's the same people again. So a lot of moving parts to this, a lot of different things. We're being asked to do a lot of different things with regard to the pandemic, while at the same time trying to keep our finger on the crime pulse. Officers are out there, they are doing their best. They live here too, they care.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Gallagher. And I mean, you just raised two really important issues to myself, and I know to other members of the council around long-term thinking around mental health, but also looking at alternatives to exactly what you're saying, the recidivism in our city and in the state. And to me, it's important that we look at alternatives like ceasefire coming out of Oakland and some of the interventions that they've had. But that's a conversation that's for sure a priority and also longer term. And then the last thing for me, Mr. Mayor, is last week during our Friday call, I forgot to come back to the question I had raised about the federal aid through the stimulus package that Congress passed, specifically to cities and municipalities. And I want to make sure that we have accurate information. We have information about how those funds can be utilized so that we can plan properly. So I would love to have either a presentation or just information sent over to council about what that federal aid will look like for the city.
Will you be proud of me? It's already on the agenda for Friday, this coming Friday.
Great. Well, thank you very much. See, alignment. It's good.
And just a reminder, it's going to be 9:30 on April 10th, I believe. Also, Counselor, I think now I know I saw a really good commercial this morning with Bishop Seitz out of El Paso and a rabbi and a couple other pastors. I think it'll be really difficult to be able to put something like that on our city website. So I think we got to have that little separation there. But I think it's a great idea, and perhaps we could put it on social media, our own social media, but we need to get them together. I haven't had a chance to meet the bishop yet, Baldacchino. Yeah. I know he's been gone. I've been traveling, and so not lately. I haven't traveled lately, but okay. Well, we'll get there. In fact, I need to see if Bishop Cantu's assistant is the same as his, then I'll have her number. And I think that's a great suggestion.
It's the same staff, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Councilor Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Lots of great updates today, and I do want to start by also expressing my displeasure at seeing the photo of the UTV riders at the Las Cruces sign this morning. What a blatant disregard of their community and the health of people in our community. 6 more cases in Doña Ana County as of yesterday. Potentially, we're going to see the greatest spike, I think, in the next 2 weeks in New Mexico, from what I'm reading. And for this to be taking place in our community, I think is just wholly unacceptable. The hand gesture that was shared in the photo with kids present at members of our community potentially was very offensive to me. And I know that those folks don't represent the entirety of the UTV community. But Mayor, as you mentioned, right after we passed an ordinance to allow folks to not be inconvenienced by having to get on a county road to unload their trailers, it seemed especially insulting to me. And so I have spoken with a couple of members from that community who were not aware that this took place. I don't think this was an officially sanctioned event from any particular organization, but it absolutely was an organized event that somebody did put together with people in close proximity And so it just begs the question of how soon do we need an emergency proclamation to perhaps put some teeth to what we're trying to do in keeping people safe and out of harm's way. And so just wanted to bring that back up, because if there was a penalty, a potential penalty just associated with something like this, I think, you know, police could absolutely use their discretion at how they do that. But I think this would be one instance where, you know, folks need to be held accountable, I think, in that particular respect. And so, so yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Thanks for my fellow counselors for also jumping on that this morning. On that same topic, I did speak with former Santa Fe Mayor Javier Gonzalez this week about a project that he has going as part of a contract with the governor's office. He works for a company now called Descartes Labs, who were featured actually in a New York Times article recently for their mapping technology. What they're able to do and what they're currently under contract to do with our state government are basically detect the cell phone pings of residents who are moving in and about residential or you know, urban areas, to kind of judge how good cities are actually social distancing. They're able to map where the hotspots are, and both Albuquerque and Santa Fe are already using this technology to help them guide where, for example, like where to send police resources, right? If there have been an increase of mass gatherings in certain places around the city, that we're able to actually have the data that shows us, you know, a bunch of people are congregating in one place. And so that service, as I understand it, through the contract that the governor has, is free to the city. And so Mayor Gonzalez asked for the city, if we were interested in getting that data, that we would actually provide guidance to what places we want to monitor and where we want that data. And so thinking about big box retail stores, right? I know we've heard a lot of concerns about places like Home Depot and Lowe's having a lot of folks congregating. I hate to say this because I'm an outdoors person and love my Oregon mountains, but I know bumper to bumper traffic on Baylor Canyon Pass Road, you know, to see the poppies has also been an issue in terms of folks gathering. There's definitely, you know, big box retail, community gathering centers, parks, some different areas of interest that we might want to have that data available to us in a map that shows us where the most people are together at one time, in order to mitigate that behavior over the next few weeks, or if there's anything we can do or should do. So from my understanding, all we have to do is send Mayor Gonzalez and representatives from his company the areas that we would like to have the data for. It's free. It's something that's being offered by the governor's office to help local governments make better decisions. So I would, you know, hope we can maybe take advantage of that, working with our especially our police department, who can maybe help us with their experience on patrol, determine what areas might be appropriate for that. So it'd be interesting to see that. I think that's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councilor. You know, if you want to reach out, you know, in fact, I owe him an apology, Mayor Gonzalez. He called when we were at our meeting last Friday, and I forgot to call him back. So if you want to just tell him, sure, I think that'd be great. Anything that they can give us is good information.
Great, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, last, Councilor Tessa Betastubi.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of what I was going to talk about actually already has been. That's the point about being last. But I wanted to just echo the statement that Mayor Pro Tem Gandara had with a little bit of clarification on our OEM and the plans in place for Cruces. As we've mentioned, the next 2 weeks are going to be crucial for our community, and we need to make sure that we as elected officials have clear and accurate reports and plans in place to help our community out in the best way possible. And the only way that we are able to do that is if we are able to make sure those plans are communicated clearly to us. And so I greatly feel that it is our duty as elected officials to be able to have that knowledge so we can make the best choices, find out what gaps there might be, and fill in those ways so that we're protecting our community. And that's going to be very vital in the next 2 weeks. Also, hopefully you don't hear anything in the background, but I just wanted to say to most of the people out there that are families, that are parents, it's been a very different 3 weeks for your families, for your kids, just for your way of life. And I hope that everyone is giving themselves a little bit of grace and a lot of patience and doing what is best for their family and how it sees fit. There are tons, I would say, of ideas, options to help keep kids busy, to help keep parents busy, but also to know that sometimes just to read your family, and if they need those times to just relax, don't feel guilty about it. Do what's best for your family. And then recognize that if at times you do see a mom and small children out in public, know that that's a requirement, that they are not allowed to leave little babies home, or anybody under probably, I'm not sure the exact age limit that it is, but you can't leave small children at the house unattended. And not everyone has the privilege of being in a 2-parent family, or some have other circumstances. So give a little grace for that. And as parents, we should be as responsible as possible, making sure that we're explaining rules and this new situation that our children are having to face. So we're not touching things as much as possible. There's been debated guidance, but looking at if they, of course, have a cough or cold, that they have a mask or some sort of way to cover up and are not touching things as much as you can possibly do for little kids. I think that's my biggest things. I hope that everybody's doing well, and I would like to echo a sentiment that I think it's about time to be able to declare the emergency proclamation, so that when situations are reaching a point that we need to act swiftly, that we are there and we are ready and prepared. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm sorry, the last sentence or statement you asked about the emergency declaration, what was it that you were wanting?
I'm saying that I think that I think it's about time that we start looking heavily into being able to declare that, so that we are able to act swiftly, and especially since we know the next few weeks are going to be very important for us to be able to make the best decisions for our community in timely fashion.
Did you have, I guess I'm a little bit confused. What would you want me to declare? I mean, what were you thinking?
Well, in regards to if we have to start making adjustments on, I believe Councilor Flores had mentioned curfew, and that's, but whatever tools we have in our toolkit that we might need to work with during this time, that we're able to do so in a timely fashion. So I'm just trying to echo the sentiments of other councilors, saying that if you were to have that declaration, that I would be in support of it.
Well, thank you. I know Councilor Flores had really wanted me to go down that route for curfew, and so far, other than, and I know this is the most critical 2 weeks, but other than those few spots like Home Depot and Lowe's, which I know that they have been spoken to and doing a few other things, I've resisted wanting to do the curfew. I think that I think it's best that we show the community how we work together to social distancing, as opposed to doing something, possibly having them cited. I think the most we can do is 90 days in jail, $500 fine. I think it's best that we show that we work together as opposed to not. And I think a lot of times all what happen is, especially if you're working late at night, you could get pulled over, if you're past the curfew. But anyways,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
No, and that, I was just bringing that point up as a but there are other tools that you would be able to use if you had that declaration. And that's what I'm trying to stress, not necessarily that one specific.
Okay, yeah, because
you'll have other things that you'll be.
because just for clarification, you all did give me that, and I couldn't do that immediately, but like I said, I didn't want to, you know, I'm of course weighing the situation at hand, and we're doing our best to ask for cooperation and not the opposite. Okay, so we're going to go to the city manager's report. David?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to also echo Council's sentiment. First, I want to thank the community, both business and residents who have been working hard to meet the public health order. Thank you for your patience. We all understand that it's extremely difficult. I appreciate your efforts and coming together in this unprecedented event that we're all going through. I also want to thank Council. I want to thank you for your patience and your direction, also for your commitment and your support of both the community and of staff during this emergency. And then lastly, I want to thank staff again for their patience, but I also want to thank them for their innovation and their efforts, also their commitment while they're continuing to work to assure that we're providing services to the members of our community. Thank you all very much for that. I do want to update Council. We have been able to obtain masks. I know that our last discussion in particular with senior programs in transit, we had mentioned that they were running out. They didn't have a supply that they needed to have. We have been able to get masks for both those sections. We also have orders in for additional masks so that when police gets to the point that they are running down, hopefully those new masks come in. We have been able to get hand sanitizer as well. For our fire department, if there's available hand sanitizer after our fire has used those, we can pass those on to other departments. The departments have done very well and are working great with each other to make sure if they have any excess supplies, they go somewhere else where it's needed. I wanted to let Council and Mayor know also that I found out late Friday that Memorial Medical Center has gotten assistance from the state with drivers over the weekend. National Guard will be helping them to transport tests up in the timeframes that they didn't previously have under contract. So they should be able to have deliveries take place every day. And then there was some mention about businesses and what they can do and the services that they can hope to get based on the federal stimulus package. You will get a report on that, as Mayor mentioned Friday, but also just wanted to pass on to you that our economic development has been passing out information as they get it. It becomes available on our website as well, so that businesses can continue to go to our website to get whatever information they may need. And then lastly, I would like to address the questions, concerns, and frustrations with information from the Office of the Emergency Management. I know that has been brought up a few times. As with the information that I was able to pass on, I believe over the weekend from the Department of Health, you were able to see there was some information on our readiness with respect to hospitals and their needs and what they have available. I did want to point out and make a note, as I mentioned in our meeting last time, there is some information that the Office of the Emergency Management cannot give out with respect to items like concerns with terrorists. They don't want to put out their entire plan. I think Chief Gallagher expressed it well when he mentioned criminals are smart, and when they find out we're patrolling in one area, then you tend to see some activity in other areas. So that makes it quite difficult for the Office of Emergency Management to give you their entire plan. I will continue to work with them. I will try to get as much information as I can that I can pass on to you. Again, some of it may be confidential that I send to you, but that will be information that they can release to me that I can pass on to you. There is a structure in place. I know Mayor Pro Tem had mentioned she had heard from them or understood that they didn't have a structure in place. We do have one in place. We have an incident commander that has been established. We also have a person that's working with the incident commander to keep track of items that we need, items that we have used and what we have paid for. So that information is being taken care of, and our incident commander is going to be available at any time that we upgrade the status of the Office of the Emergency Management Office. We are meeting regularly through both the Joint Information Center and the multi-agency coordination groups. And again, I will continue to pass on the information that I do get from the Joint Information Center so that you are aware of those items. Thank you all very much again. I really appreciate all the support and commitment that we have received from you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, yes, Councilor Sword.
Could I ask just one quick question? It's been tossed around here in the last week or so. It's about our landfill and the trash disposal that can't do now because the dump are closed. I just wondered if there was, from management, if there's been a plan in being done about that. Mr. Mayastis.
Councilor, I know that they opened up the transfer stations in the county that had been closed, but I think they still have the other ones closed. I don't know if Dr. Garcia is still here. Let me just, is it there, or if David wants to answer.
He's on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council, yes, South Central Solid Waste Authority still has the city facilities closed. As you know, we had a lot of congregation of private citizens in those facilities, and that's why Mr. Peck, with the with consultation with the chair, Councilor Vasquez, decided to, for now, close those facilities. Where services are still there. We're still picking up trash. We're still picking up recycling. We still have the green grappler for all the citizens. What has changed is the private citizens taking extra loads down to the transfer station. Unfortunately, the recycling facilities are closed because otherwise they end up with trash as well. The only thing that we're not accommodating at this time, and I've had a couple of emails on that, and Mr. Maestas has too, is the glass, because the glass cannot go into the blue container. So we're asking the public to be patient for the next week to 10 days and see, we will reassess the situation. I'm also looking into alternatives to do additional green grappler pickup potentially. We're evaluating the resources needed to do that. But for now, the services that we provide of garbage and solid waste for residential and commercial is still on at the same time with the same schedule.
Okay, Mayor, did you say that the county had their dump sites open?
Transfer stations, I think they opened up a few more, didn't they, Dr. Garcia?
You're correct, Mr. Mayor. At the request of the county commission, South Central and Mr. Peck had to open some of those because some of those residents in the county do not have the full range of services that we have here in the city.
Okay,
So
thank you so much.
The county commission requested that, but Mr. Peck requested that we be patient and see if we can wait another week to 10 days because we did have a lot of citizens being off work. They were going to the transfer station with their pickup trucks and gathering in those facilities.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Is that it, Councilor Sword?
Yes, we're getting a bad echo here, so I shut my microphone off. But yes, that's it. Thanks so much.
Okay. Looks like Councilor Flores wants to say something.
Yes. Going back to that curfew thing, when I raised it last week, I gave El Paso as an example of the penalties to give the ordinance some teeth, but I didn't say that we should do the same thing. I don't know, maybe I did. But I don't believe that would be the appropriate thing to do. Councilor Bencomo said that, that maybe something like warnings would work or something. But all that being said, a curfew wouldn't be, it's not a lockdown. A curfew is different, but I'm not really proposing that at this point. It's the mayor's call, and let it rest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Real quick, getting back to, and I think I see Chief Enriquez here. Chief, are you there? Yeah, I hope you are. So Chief, I don't know if he's there now, but
Yes, I'm here, Mayor.
okay. So years ago, the OEM used to have a committee called LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee or Council, and it used to be one county commissioner, one city councilor, the fire chief of the city, fire marshal of the county. Do you know if they still do that?
Yes, that still exists, Mayor, and actually our Deputy Chief Jason Smith is the chair of that committee.
Okay. I wonder if for, I don't know, just so that the council members can see some of the minutes of what's discussed, and I don't even know who the city representative is, city council representative is. I haven't been told that in years. That's why I asked if it even still existed.
At this time, there is no elected official on the board.
Oh, really? Not even a county commissioner?
No, neither at this time, sir.
Wonder how that changed. I think that because then that could be yet another committee that they could share information to the council with, so that they wouldn't feel like information is closed. And let me just see if this is still the same. Is the OEM salary or funding 50% state, 25% county, 25% city?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's still the same. All right. Okay, Chief. If we could probably, I don't know if Christine can get those, because those are probably kept in the county archives, because since for years it's always been the county was like the fiscal agent. Since they're a political subdivision of the state, the OEM always seemed to rest with the county, and so maybe that's if we can get copies of the some example of minutes of what goes on there, and I think it probably wouldn't hurt. I mean, I know council has enough committees, but I think there's interest from this point moving forward to have someone sit on there, or I don't mind sitting on it, but I mean, I don't have, if a council person wants to sit on there, that's fine.
Yeah, yes, Mayor and Council, I can tell you Deputy Chief Smith is the chair of the LEPC currently, so we'll get you the list of the members on the board and also the members of that committee, and kind of give you what the direction and what the role is of the LEPC in regards to OEM.
Great, I appreciate it, Chief. Okay, it looks like
Mayor, this is David.
Oh, yes, David.
One other thing, since you bring that up, there were times in the past where the Office of Emergency Management would run what they would call trial incidents or events, and they would have council members involved in those as well. Those were several years ago. I have broached that approach, and I can do that again and talk to Colin about that and see if that's something that they want to consider. It may not help us obviously in this incident now, but what it can do is give council some background on what steps are taken as they move through events and incidents.
No, I think that'd be good. I don't know. I doubt if Councilor Bencomo and Beta Stuvey have ever been to the command center there on North Solano in the county health building, but they can transform that into an area where when they need to take over and there's been an emergency, they're running it out of that. At least they used to. I presume they still do.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. If there's nothing further, entertain a motion to adjourn. Need a motion and a second, please.
Second.
Who made the motion?
Yvonne.
Councilor Flores. Okay, who made the second?
Gabe Vasquez.
Councilor Vasquez. Motion made by Councilor Flores, second by Councilor Vasquez, that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
There are no abstentions. We are adjourned. It's 4:14 p.m. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.